Chapter 8:12. In the heavenly devil palace, Tenmoni, who was dressed in a luxurious black jade robe, was sitting on a huge arhat bed. The arhat bed was more than 5 feet tall and 7 feet wide. It was completely made of top-grade blood-red coral gems. It looked like a jewel and was full of color. On top of the coral bed, there was an antique white jade chess table that was 3 feet long and had a square surface. Tenmoni, who had an elegant temperament and auspicious aura around him, had a smile on his face. He seemed to be in a good mood. He used his white and slender fingers to pick up a round chess piece carved from a ruby from the chess jar beside him and gently placed it on the white jade chessboard. He was playing chess with someone. Brother Devil's move is really exquisite. Once this piece is placed, the entire chess game I set up is completely passive. Opposite Tenmoni, a young man who was also surrounded by auspicious aura shook his head slowly and looked up at Tenmoni. He smiled and said, "This person looked to be in his 20s. His eyebrows were like the crescent moon in the blue sky. His eyes were as bright as the stars. His skin was smooth and his teeth were like jade. He wore a facial white jade robe, a white jade hairpin with a flying dragon on his head, a white jade belt inlaid with 7 treasures on his waist, and a pair of white boots with flowing cloud flames on his feet. He was handsome and looked like a bouffon. There was a faint aura of a king in his every move. To be able to play chess with Tenmoni on the same stage, his identity was naturally not to be underestimated. This person was none other than the new master of the demon realm, the demon lord. "Ha ha, brother demon, you flatter me." Tenmoni heard the demon lord's words and immediately laughed. "This chess game was secretly learned from Mr. Eldritch when I was playing chess with him. I have embarrassed myself in front of you, ha ha. I heard that Mr. Eldritch has reincarnated as a human and has become the demon realm's ruler. Is this true?" The demon lord picked up a black jade chess piece from the chess jar and asked Tenmoni, "Why? Didn't Brother Demon see the declaration I sent to the realm of demons and ghosts?" Tenmoni asked the demon venerable with a smile. "I've just unified the demon realm and have a lot of things to do. I don't have the time to read the declaration of war." The demon venerable gently placed the black chess piece on the white jade chessboard and said with a smile, "I heard this news from my subordinates. They said that Eldritch, who once dominated the 3 realms, has become your subordinate and the king of the demon realm." "It's true." Tenmoni smiled at the demon venerable. "Brother, you did become the monarch of the demon realm." Tenmoni's words shocked the demon venerable. "If that's the case, why haven't I seen him in the past few days since I came to the demon realm?" The demon venerable was the supreme being of the demon realm and had the same status as Tenmoni. According to etiquette, when the demon venerable came to the demon realm, the devil monarch should also receive the demon venerable together with Tenmoni. However, the demon venerable had been in the demon realm for more than 3 days and had yet to see Eldritch's reincarnation as the monarch of the demon realm. He originally thought that the news circulating in the realm of demons and ghosts was false. Now that he heard Tenmoni admit it himself, he knew that it was true. "Brother demon, you don't know. My brother you did become the monarch of the demon realm, but ever since he took office, he has been dealing with private matters in the human world. It's normal that Brother Demon hasn't seen him." Tenmoni smiled as he picked up the 7 treasures glazed cup beside the chess table and took a sip of the fine wine. "In the human world?" Tenmoni's words made the demon venerable feel incredulous. "That's right." Tenmoni put down the glazed cup and grabbed a handful of red chess pieces from the chess jar. He played with them in his palm as he answered with a smile, "How can the scenery in the human world be compared to the demon realm?" The demon venerable asked Tenmoni in confusion. As the monarch of the demon realm, why didn't he stay in the demon realm to help Brother Demon? Why did he go to the human world? The demon realm, the human realm, the demon realm, and the ghost realm. Among the 4 realms, the demon realm was the most magnificent and the most powerful one. The demon Venerable did not understand what the monarch of the demon realm had in the human world that made him reluctant to leave. Brother Demon, you don't know. He has something important to do in the human world, Tenmoni said as he roughly told the demon Venerable about Yi Fan. Is that so? The demon Venerable frowned and asked Tenmoni in surprise. Brother Demon, you're busy unifying the demon realm. Of course, you don't know much about the human world, Tenmoni said with a smile. The reincarnation of Eldritch who survived the heavenly tribulation, the monarch of the demon realm. He's looking for the 9 ancient cauldrons for a Japanese woman? How is that possible? It doesn't make sense at all. The demon Venerable could not believe Tenmoni's words. Ha 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 ha. Tenmoni looked up at the sky and laughed. Brother Demon, tell me, when has Eldritch done things according to common sense? The demon Venerable was stunned and then laughed. What Tianmani said was right. Evil Moon's behavior had always been both righteous and evil. He was unruly and unruly, depending on his likes and dislikes. If he did things according to common sense, he would not be Eldritch. Buzz, just as the demon Venerable and the demon Venerable were discussing Eldritch, the black and red chess pieces on the chessboard suddenly released black and red lights and floated up. All the chess pieces floated a few inches above the chessboard, shining brightly and making a buzzing sound. Seeing this, the demon Venerable frowned and Tenmoni's expression changed instantly. Crash, following a crisp sound, all the black and red chess pieces floating on the chessboard fell and scattered all over the white jade chessboard. Brother Demon, this sign is... The demon Venerable asked Tenmoni. Tenmoni stretched out his slender fingers and counted. His frown deepened. Brother Demon, forgive me for not being able to play chess with you. Tenmoni looked up at the demon Venerable and said, I have to make a trip to the human world. Brother Demon wants to go to the human world? The demon Venerable asked in surprise. Tenmoni was the leader of the demon world. His status was extremely respected, and he would not deign to go to the human world easily. In thousands of years, he had only gone to the human world 3 or 4 times. Now that Tenmoni wanted to go to the human world, the demon Venerable did not even need to guess to know that something big had happened. Tenmoni nodded. What happened that requires you to make a trip personally? The demon Venerable asked Tenmoni. What do you say? Something has happened to my demon world king. I have to go personally. It will be too late if I'm late. Crash. Tenmoni said with a frown. He threw the ruby chess piece back into the coral chess pot and then got off the colorful coral arhat bed. Brother Demon, you rest here first. If you need anything, just let them know. I'll be back soon. Tenmoni said to the demon Venerable. Brother Demon, can I go to the human world with you? The demon Venerable asked Tenmoni, and got off the coral arhat bed. Brother Demon wants to go too? Tenmoni frowned and asked the demon Venerable. I have nothing to do. I can go with you and see Eldritch's reincarnation of the demon world king. The demon Venerable said to Tenmoni. Okay. Tenmoni thought for a while and agreed to the demon Venerable's request. Since Brother Demon wants to go, we'll go together. Okay. The demon Venerable said. Tenmoni nodded. The two began to walk side by side to the door. The 2 beautiful palace maids lowered their heads and slowly opened the 7-treasured door respectfully. Brother Demon, the Demon King has passed the heavenly tribulation and obtained the power of the Blood Demon. His cultivation is so high that he can be said to be invincible. Brother Demon, you don't have to worry too much. Seeing Tenmoni frown, the demon Venerable comforted Tenmoni. I'm not worried that he can't beat the other party. Tenmoni said with a solemn face. On the contrary, I'm worried that his heavenly demon power is completely out of control, causing spiritual power to go berserk and plunge people into misery and suffering. He had already deduced the result from the signs on the chessboard just now. Yi Fan had now completely released the heavenly demon power he obtained from the blood demon pool. The heavenly demon power became stronger when facing a strong opponent, and Yi Fan's style of doing things was very extreme. In addition, the evil aura in his body was restless. If he continued to urge the demon spirit without restraint, Yi Fan's mind would be completely controlled by the blood demon's desire to kill. When that time came, the human world would be filled with corpses and suffering, turning into a purgatory. Once things developed to that point, the heavenly realm would definitely intervene and kill Yi Fan. The scene from hundreds of years ago might repeat itself. Tenmoni's words made the demon venerable's eyes widen in shock. He originally thought that Tenmoni was worried about the demon king's safety and rushed to the human world to help. Now he understood that the demon venerable went to the human world to stop the demon king from going crazy. Whoosh! After walking out of the palace, the demon venerable and the demon venerable turned into two bright lights, one black and one white, and disappeared into thin air in the sky above the East Sea. The flames were like mountains, and the red light filled the sky. Within the flames, Yi Fan's red hair soared into the sky, and his blood-red robe fluttered in the wind. The dazzling swastika written upside down on his forehead was shining brightly, and blood was flowing. Crack! Crack! Within the blood-red flames that soared into the sky, Yi Fan's eyes were empty as he stared at the void. He kept shaking his neck, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Tenmoni's calculation was right. At this time, Yi Fan had completely released the heavenly demon power. Ever since he obtained the heavenly demon power from the blood demon pool, Yi Fan had been carefully suppressing this power. He had never dared to make the slightest mistake. Every time he used the heavenly demon power, Yi Fan had to control his thoughts in advance to prevent the endless killing intent in the heavenly demon power from taking over his mind. Every time he used the heavenly demon power, Yi Fan didn't dare to use 50% of it. Even when he attacked the divine cauldron's barrier, he would only use 70% of his strength at most. This time, Akatsuki was killed and her soul was stolen, causing Yi Fan to fly into a rage. His beloved wife Fujiwara no Chiko's soul was stolen by Inchan Dashyong, causing her soul to be incomplete, like that of a child. This time, Akatsuki's soul was also stolen by a ghost spirit. This kind of despicable technique was what Yi Fan despised the most, and it was also what Yi Fan could not forgive. When a person was enraged to the extreme, their expression was not one of gnashing their teeth and spitting fire, but a kind of calmness. A kind of calmness like that of death. At this time, Yi Fan's expression was this kind of calmness. Since he already had the heart to kill all the ghost spirits, why should he suppress the killing intent that he had suppressed for so long? He wanted to release his killing intent. He wanted to start a massacre and exterminate the ghost spirits. When he removed the power of his mind that was suppressing the heavenly demon power that he had suppressed for so long went berserk, as if it had been granted amnesty. There was only one word in his mind right now: kill. Kill the ghost spirits. Kill all the people who deserved to be killed. At this moment, Yi Fan felt a sense of freedom, a sense of release, a sense of power that he had never felt before. Great sorrow without words, great anger without words. Yi Fan didn't want to say anything now. He was wholeheartedly waiting for the ghost spirits to recover. Chapter 8:13. Whoosh! A few moments later, dozens of black lights rose from the sea and soared into the sky. The spirits were restored once again. Rumble! The two skeletal warships broke through the sea and soared into the sky. Swoosh! 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 After the dozens of black rays of light shot into the sky, they instantly spread out and surrounded Yi Fan, who was in the midst of the soaring flames. Swoosh! After surrounding Yi Fan, the spirits reverted back to their human forms. Their current attire was completely different from before. The brown clothes that the spirits were wearing were no longer there. Instead, they were wearing loose, black robes. They were wearing black robes and black hats. Their heads were slightly lowered and they were motionless, like dozens of statues. The wide brims of their hats covered their foreheads and eyes. At this time, they were surrounded by black smoke and a chilly wind. On one side there was a black hat, black robe, and black fog surrounding them. On the other side, there was a red hair, red robe, and red flames enveloped him. Both sides, one black and one red, one ghost and one demon, created a strong visual impact. Whoosh, the sea breeze blew, causing the robes on both sides to flutter in the wind, making a flapping sound. Swoosh. In the blink of an eye, the dozens of ghost spirit experts surrounding Yi Fan raised their heads in unison. Rumble. The moment they raised their heads, their eyes shone with black light. Black light burst out from their bodies and soared into the sky. Rumble. Dozens of black and resplendent shockwaves spread out rapidly with each of the ghost spirits at the center. What a strong spiritual pressure! Chinkong Iha, who was in the sky far away, was shocked. Seeing that the shockwaves from the spirits were spreading rapidly, Chinkong Iha did not dare to be careless. He immediately started to defend himself. With a thought, he flipped his palm and gently pushed the air in front of him. Buzz, a white semicircular light shield formed in front of Chinkong Iha, blocking him and Onijiro, who was sitting behind him. Rumble! Rumble! The dozens of black shockwaves instantly collided with Chinkong Iha's protective light barrier, producing a series of deafening booms. At the same time that the shockwave was blocked, Chinkong Iha's protective light barrier was also shattered. The black radiance was scattered, the white radiance splashed, and the black and white radiance fell like rain from the sky. Chinkong Iha narrowed his eyes with a solemn expression. Compared to before, the spiritual pressure of the ghosts had increased by at least 10 times. They had only just begun to reveal their true strength. The strength of a ghost immortal. Although the shockwaves from the spirits were extremely powerful, they paled in comparison to Yi Fan's. Before the dozens of dazzling black shockwaves could approach Yi Fan's flames, they instantly turned into black smoke and dissipated. Within the flames that soared into the sky, the red-haired, red-robed Yi Fan curled his vermilion lips, revealing a devilish smile. He used his blood-red eyes and black pupils to look at the ghosts that were also changing their forms. His gaze was hollow and terrifying. The ghosts within the black flames were also staring at Yi Fan with their glowing black eyes. They had sinister smiles on their faces, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. They held shiny battle swords in their hands as they approached Yi Fan step by step. The encirclement began to shrink gradually. A strong murderous aura instantly filled the air. Swoosh! Swoosh! The ghosts that were dragging their swords forward became faster and faster. Finally, they turned into dozens of dazzling black and white radiance and attacked Yi Fan, who was in the center of the encirclement. The black radiance was the ghost shadow, and the white radiance was the sword radiance. Their speed was as fast as the wind and as fast as lightning. Within the flames, Yi Fan smiled sinisterly. He shook his red robe and swung it elegantly, then spun in a circle on the spot. Swoosh! 3 dazzling, blood-red shockwaves appeared out of thin air. With Yi Fan as the center, the shockwaves spread out at the speed of light, like blood-red ripples in a pool of blood. Whoosh! 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 Seeing Yi Fan's devil spirit shockwaves coming at them, the ghosts did not dare to be careless. As they rushed forward, they raised their glowing white demon battle swords high above their heads and slashed down. Dozens of white radiance shot out from the swords in the ghosts' hands and slashed directly at the 3 devil spirit shockwaves. The radiance of the radiance was more than 10 feet long and as dazzling as snow. Boom! With a loud sound, the dozens of radiance of the ghost's radiance collided with Yi Fan's first devil spirit shockwave. Bang! 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 Following countless crisp sounds, the demon battle swords in the ghost's hands were instantly cut into pieces by Yi Fan's first shockwave as if they were tofu. The faces of all the spirits were filled with shock, and their pupils that were shining with black light immediately constricted. This guy had only spun in a circle on the spot, but he was able to release such a powerful shockwave, to the extent that their demon battle swords, which were forged from the primordial spirits of countless evil spirits, were cut into two. Could it be that the Lord of the Devil Realm was really like what the rumors said, becoming stronger when facing a strong opponent? Could he so easily deal with the joint attack of dozens of ghost spirit experts? How was that possible? One had to know that they were 1,000-year ghosts who had never met a worthy opponent, and their strength was comparable to that of a ghost immortal. Just as the ghosts were in disbelief, Yi Fan's second devil spirit shockwave arrived. All of the ghost spirits were shocked. They threw away the broken swords in their hands and activated the power of their 1,000-year ghosts. Buzz, the black radiance on the ghosts' bodies suddenly rose. They stepped into the air, activated their ghosts, and pushed their palms toward the second devil spirit shockwave. Whoosh! 2 black pillars of light shot out from the palms of every ghost spirit expert. The beams of light were about 3 feet thick, and the black radiance was flowing. They were dazzling and domineering. They wanted to use their 1,000-year ghosts to stop the shockwave together. However, they had underestimated the Demon King too much. At this time, Yi Fan's form was 100% that of the Demon King's body, and the power of the Demon King had spread throughout Yi Fan's entire body. Most importantly, Yi Fan no longer used his heart to suppress the heavenly demon's power. He allowed the heavenly demon's power to run amok. This was also thanks to the Rainbow Spirit Phoenix that had forged an extremely strong body for Yi Fan, which could completely withstand the overbearing spiritual pressure of the Demon King's power. If it was the previous body, it would not be able to withstand the full form of the Demon King's spiritual energy. The 100% form of the Demon King's body, the power of the Demon King, the power of the Demon King, coupled with his strong body and endless killing intent, Yi Fan's current strength had reached the peak of its peak for the first time since he started cultivating. These ghosts were indeed rare 1,000-year ghosts. Not only did they have 1,000-year cultivation, but they also had powerful immortal bodies. They were even top experts in controlling ghosts and spirits when they were alive. But then again, no matter how strong their cultivation was, compared to Yi Fan's power as the Demon King, the difference was like heaven and earth. No matter how strong an ant was, it would not be a match for an elephant. Moreover, Yi Fan was not an elephant now, but a demonic beast full of killing intent. Boom! The moment the black beams of light shot out by the ghosts touched Yi Fan's second demon spirit shockwave, they were instantly shattered and turned into nothingness. Yi Fan's demon spirit shockwave did not even pause. Bang! 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 In an instant, all the spirits were sent flying backward by the huge recoil. But unfortunately, their flying speed could not keep up with the speed of the shockwave. After the second shockwave shattered the opponent's black spiritual energy, it did not slow down and directly hit the protective flames of the ghosts. Boom! A loud sound was heard, black light splashed, and the shockwave dispersed. The black protective flames of the ghosts were instantly swept away by Yi Fan's second shockwave, and the light dissipated. At this time, their flames were completely gone, and their spiritual energy had dissipated. They could not even block the attack anymore. Boom! Before they could adjust their bodies after being sent flying, the third shockwave came instantly. When the ghosts saw the third shockwave coming, they instantly revealed sinister smiles. After this shockwave, their souls would definitely be scattered and turned into ashes. But what was there to be happy about? Of course they were happy. The reason was simple. As long as their souls were scattered and turned into ashes, it would not take long for them to be reborn again and recover to their original state. At that time, they would still be able to appear in their original state. So what if he was the Demon King? So what if his cultivation was shocking? With their immortal bodies, even if a deity descended, he would not be able to do anything to them. However, they were wrong. Yi Fan's third devil spirit shockwave did not shatter their primordial spirits. When the shockwave was less than 3 feet away from the ghosts, Yi Fan opened his eyes slightly. Whoosh, the rapidly spreading shockwave suddenly burst with a red glow, and then with a whoosh, it turned into a bright red, dazzling scarlet chain. The chain was dozens of feet long, as thick as an arm, and as red as blood. It was like a red python dancing wildly in the air. Seeing this, the ghosts' pupils suddenly shrank, and their expressions changed greatly. This demon king did not want to kill them at all, but wanted to capture them alive. Whoosh, the glaring scarlet chain seemed to have a mind of its own, and directly tied up the ghosts, who were flying in all directions, firmly wrapping around them 7 to 8 times. Yi Fan just turned around on the spot, and the ghosts were instantly restrained. The strength of the heavenly demon's power was evident. At this moment, in the air around Yi Fan, dozens of black-robed ghost spirits experts were tightly bound by blood-red chains, forming a huge circle. It was a very spectacular sight. In the center of the circle, Yi Fan, with his red hair fluttering in the wind, smiled and looked at the ghosts in the air with his pair of blood-red eyes, with a sinister smile on his face. Since these ghosts had immortal bodies, he might as well capture them alive. This way, it would save him a lot of trouble. First, he would capture them alive, then use all kinds of methods to torture them, and make them suffer a fate worse than death. After finding their weakness, he would completely end them. The rampaging of the heavenly demon's power caused Yi Fan's battle techniques and analytical abilities to rise along with it. This was not the first time he had used the Scarlet Chain. During the demon-slaying conference, he had used this move to directly suppress the 8 yin-yang disciples. Now, it's my turn, the red-haired, red-lipped Yi Fan said with a sinister smile. Chapter 8:14. Whoosh. As Yi Fan spoke, he stretched out his hand into the air. Whoosh. In the air, the scarlet chain that looked like a dancing blood snake flew toward Yi Fan as if it had a mind of its own. Whoosh. One end of the scarlet chain was held in Yi Fan's hand. The red-robed Yi Fan smiled and gently squeezed the chain in his hand. Buzz, the scarlet chain let out a crisp sound, and the scarlet light suddenly burst forth. Chi, the dozens of 1,000-year-old ghosts that were bound by the scarlet chain suddenly emitted black smoke and sizzled. The spirits let out tragic wails of agony. He he he. Yi Fan turned his blood-red eyes towards the wailing spirits. He then laughed in a creepy mix of male and female voices. What do you think? Doesn't taste too bad, huh? If you have the ability, then kill us. The ghost spirit that killed Akatsuki was burned by the scarlet chain and his face was distorted. Black smoke spread everywhere. He endured the pain and stared at Yi Fan as he spoke fiercely. Kill you? Wouldn't that be too good for you? Yi Fan said with a sinister smile as he activated the scarlet chain in his hand again. Buzz, the scarlet chain's light burst forth again. Arr! The ghostly spirit screamed and wailed incessantly. Come. I'll take you for a ride and relax. He. Yi Fan laughed evilly and shook his arm, swinging the scarlet chain in his hand. He swung the crimson chain above his head in circles. Whoosh, whoosh, the scarlet chain, which was hundreds of feet long, whizzed and turned, forming a huge circular scarlet light screen. The whole scene was majestic and magnificent. Ah, wah, ugh, the ghost's wails echoed in the air, making one's scalp tingle. With Yi Fan's swing, the scarlet chains tightened. The chains that were as hot as burning charcoal caused the spirits to suffer unspeakably, living a life worse than death. What are you talking about? I don't understand, ha ha ha. Yi Fan laughed maniacally as he swung the huge scarlet chain. Chinkong Iha, who was hovering in the distant sky, was so shocked that his pupils constricted and his face turned pale. After Yi Fan changed his form, his cultivation and strength could no longer be described as rising in a straight line. If the previous Yi Fan could be described as powerful, then the current him could only be described as terrifying, because the current him was like a completely different person compared to before. Before his transformation, Yi Fan was handsome and cold, and his cultivation was shocking. However, he was still a human. After transforming into the demonic monarch form, Yi Fan had black eyes, red hair, and red robes. His spiritual energy was berserk, and his personality was deranged. His cultivation was no longer shocking, but heaven-defying. He was no longer human. Instead, it was a devil, the demonic monarch. Dozens of thousand-year-old ghost spirits, at the level of ghost immortals, were easily toyed with in the palm of his hand. His strength was so strong that even a heavenly deity would not be able to defeat him. Chinkong Iha thought to himself. On the deck of Wuji, all the experts stood there motionlessly with pale faces. Yi Fan's transformation and his domineering strength made them feel as if they were in a dream. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that the quiet, low-key, and cold Yi Fan could become such a powerful and crazy demonic monarch. Sato Kawakai and the green-eyed child were sweating profusely, and their faces were pale. They wiped the sweat on their foreheads with their sleeves from time to time, and their hearts were beating wildly. To them, the previous Yi Fan was already unfathomable, and his strength was shocking. Today, it was just the tip of the iceberg. With Yi Fan's current state, he could kill them with a snap of his fingers or with a single glance. Chi Yao Yamamoto, who had been slapped by Yi Fan with a bloody nose and a swollen face, stood there in a daze, as if he was a wooden chicken. Matsumoto Takeyoshi had a serious expression, not saying a word. Yi Fan's demonic monarch strength had surprised him a bit. The heavenly demon's power and the heavenly tribulation's power, these two opposing powers had actually appeared on Yi Fan's body at the same time. This made Matsumoto Takeyoshi think of the words Xie Tian had said to him in the past. This person was indeed the stumbling block between him and Xie Tian, the bane of their lives. The blue-clothed man looked at Yi Fan in the sky without blinking with a calm expression. After he had been heavily injured by Yi Fan, he had been depressed and had lost all his face. Looking at it now, losing to Yi Fan was not shameful. This young man was the reincarnation of Eldritch. He was a natural-born expert. In the past, the 6 immortals of the heavenly realm were not this person's match. He was just a normal person. How could he be a mantis trying to stop a chariot, an ant trying to shake a tree? Losing to Yi Fan was not shameful, rather it was a kind of honor. They had both lost to Yi Fan, but the blue-clothed man's realm far surpassed the blue-clothed man and the blue-clothed man, Sato Kawakai. Shwa. High up in the sky, the demon lord Tenmoni wearing the black jade robe and the monster lord wearing the white jade robe of Feishua appeared out of thin air. The two of them stood side by side looking down. At this time, the two of them had already hidden their aura, spiritual energy, auspicious light, and figures. They were invisible without a trace and without making a sound. This is Brother Demon's ruler of the demon realm, the reincarnation of Eldritch? The white-clothed monster lord exclaimed after seeing Yi Fan, who was covered in blood flames and surrounded by thousands of blood rays. That's him, Tenmoni said with a frown. Everything was as he had predicted. At this time, Yi Fan was already the ruler of the demon realm in his full form. His spiritual energy is really complicated. The monster lord frowned and said, so much energy is concentrated on him. This is really unprecedented. As the supreme ruler of the demon realm, the monster lord's cultivation was unimaginably high. He could see the type of spiritual energy and the distribution of energy in Yi Fan at a glance. The Xiantian secrets of extreme yang, the proud moon heavenly scripture of extreme yin and extreme evil qi of extreme yin and extreme evil qi of extreme evil qi of extreme yin and extreme evil qi of extreme evil qi of extreme 4 elements gathered in this person's body. In his sea of qi, the spiritual energy of the 2,000-year-old inner cores, one cold and one hot, intertwined and spun non-stop. In addition, Yi Fan's body also had a red spirit of the mountains and river and a golden pure yang spiritual energy. What made the monster lord feel even more incredulous was that in Yi Fan's spiritual altar, there was an essence soul that was exactly the same as Yi Fan's. Everything was as he had said. Yi Fan was too complicated. The red spirit of the mountains and river that he saw was obtained by Yi Fan from his wife, Fujiwara no Chiko's family heirloom, spiritual jade blood phoenix. As for the golden pure yang spiritual energy, it was passed down to him by his sworn brother, Brother Kim, when Yi Fan first obtained his cultivation. If it wasn't complicated, he wouldn't be eldritch, Tenmoni said solemnly as he looked at Yi Fan, who was having fun crazily below. Can't you use the power of the sea to recover? Come, 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 I'll grant you your wish and let you play in the sea, ha ha. In midair, the crazed Yi Fan laughed maniacally. He moved his body and charged downwards. At the same time, he swung the scarlet chain in his hand downwards. Whoosh, a red shadow flashed and the scarlet chain, which was dozens of feet long, fell from midair. Boom, 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 there was a loud sound as the scarlet chain, which was binding the dozens of ghosts, smashed heavily onto the two netherworld ghost ships below. Bang, 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 the two newly recovered netherworld ghost ships were smashed into pieces by the scarlet chain. White bones flew everywhere, and broken bones flew everywhere. Ouch, arg, the ghosts wailed and screamed in agony. They only had one wish now, and that was to die quickly. They did not want to endure such torment any longer. The ghosts had roamed the sea for thousands of years, and they had never wanted to die so badly before. Sorry, I'm new to this and I accidentally missed. Let's try again, he. Yi Fan laughed evilly and raised the scarlet chain into the air again, and then swung it down again. Bang, 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 the scarlet chain, which was dozens of feet long, hit the surface of the sea heavily. Bang, bang, bang. The water on the surface of the sea exploded, and huge waves rose to the sky. The water rushed up to the sky, and it was more than 1,000 feet high. Come on, you guys can recover. Ha ha. Yi Fan laughed maniacally as he raised the scarlet chain again, and swung it at the surface of the sea again. Yi Fan swung it back and forth more than 10 times. The entire sea surface was swung by Yi Fan's swings, and the waves were roaring loudly. The ghosts were being swung into the sea one moment, and then up into the air the next. It could be said that they had suffered enough and were suffering unspeakably. Logically speaking, as long as they fell into the sea, they could quickly absorb the souls of the creatures in the sea for their own use, and recover as before. But the premise was that they had to die, and they had to be unrestrained. Now that Yi Fan had bound them tightly with the demon spirit chain, and then tortured them in all kinds of ways, but did not kill them, how could they recover as before? At this moment, the scarlet chains had already twisted their bodies into grotesque shapes. Change for me to see, ha ha ha. Yi Fan laughed maniacally as he swung the scarlet chain at the surface of the sea. The screams of the ghosts rose and fell, and the miserable cries shook the sky. Seeing Yi Fan go berserk, Tenmoni narrowed his eyes and prepared to stop Yi Fan. Yi Fan's mind was already in a deranged state. If he was not stopped, his mind would be completely occupied by the desire to kill. At that time, he would really become a demon. Brother Gui Mu, hurry up, I'm a little tired of playing. Yi Fan waved the scarlet chain as he turned his head to look at Anamuki with his pair of bloody black eyes. He laughed evilly with a mix of male and female voices. Whoosh! As soon as Yi Fan finished speaking, the demon venerable beside Tenmoni immediately blocked Tenmoni with his hand. Tenmoni turned his head to look at the demon venerable. Brother Mo, you heard what he said. He's waiting for his companions to think of a way. The demon venerable turned his head to look at Tenmoni and said, He's not only focused on killing, which means that his mind is not as weak as we thought. The demon venerable's words made Tenmoni frown, and he was shocked. Chapter 8:15. The Demon Lord was right. Although Yi Fan had transformed into the form of the devil monarch, he was still conscious and his spiritual altar was still there. This could be seen from what he said to the Onagiro. He could still be so clear-headed even after exerting the power of the heavenly demon to its fullest. Tenmoni did not expect this at all. Eldritch has the power to go through the tribulation, the spirit of heavenly thunder, and the support of the two spiritual powers of righteousness. His consciousness will not be easily taken over for the time being, the demon lord in a snow robe continued, unless he is willing to let the devil spirit control his spiritual altar, or he receives an extremely strong mental stimulation. Tenmoni looked down at Yi Fan, who had transformed into the form of the devil monarch in the sky below, and did not speak. In my opinion, it's better for Big Brother not to intervene in this matter. The demon lord turned to Tenmoni and said, Heaven must have its own arrangement for him to go through the tribulation of heavenly thunder. If Big Brother goes to stop him now, it's very likely that it will backfire and stimulate his true demonic nature. By then, what should Big Brother do? Kill him? Tenmoni took a deep breath, and his expression became more dignified. Speaking of which, these nether ghouls are bloodthirsty by nature and torment living beings, causing them to be notorious in the ghost dimension a long time ago. That old fellow, the Ghost Lord, has always turned a blind eye to these nether ghouls, turning a blind eye to them and allowing them to do whatever they want. This matter has long caused the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. Today, heaven has used the devil monarch to get rid of them. This is also the cycle of the heavenly Tao. Karma is not good. For the devil monarch, this is considered a merit and a good thing, the demon lord continued to say to Tenmoni. You mean, I'm just going to ignore this matter and let him release the devil spirit without any scruples? Tenmoni turned to look at the demon lord and asked. Of course not. The demon venerable replied, We can observe the demonic monarch's every move from here. If the demonic monarch's mind is still intact and he recovers after dealing with this matter, we'll all be happy and return home to finish the game. If the demonic monarch's devil spirit is still blazing and he acts crazily after dealing with the ghosts of the netherworld, it won't be too late for us to make a move then. What do you think, Big Brother? All right, we'll do as you say. After hearing the demon venerable's words, Tenmoni nodded slowly and said, The demon venerable's analysis was indeed reasonable. As far as Yi Fan was concerned, there was only merit in eliminating these nether ghosts, who were tormenting the living beings of the world. There was no sin. Moreover, although Yi Fan's murderous aura was rising and his devil spirit had gone berserk, his mind was still clear and he was not controlled by the heavenly demon's murderous intent. Since that was the case, why should he stop him? Ever since Yi Fan had lost his wife, he had been depressed and depressed. This battle with the ghosts of the netherworld would allow him to release the evil fire and murderous intent that had been pent up in his heart. High up in the sky, Yi Fan was still torturing the ghosts of the netherworld. He first spun the blood-red chains in the air a few times, then threw the dizzy ghosts of the netherworld ghost ship down below. Boom, 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 loud noises rang out on the surface of the sea. The water exploded, and white bones flew everywhere. The ghosts of the netherworld who were firmly bound to the blood-red chains were no longer howling in pain. Their netherworld ghost bodies had become very transparent, and the black smoke that had wrapped around their bodies had long dissipated without a trace. At this moment, they were only a step away from having their souls dissipated. Crash! Yi Fan shook the blood-red chains and brought the ghosts of the netherworld to his eyes. What's wrong? Can't hold on any longer? Yi Fan stared at the ghosts of the netherworld with his blood-red eyes and asked in a creepy mix of male and female voices. The ghosts of the netherworld were panting weakly. They had no spiritual energy, and their spirits were dispirited. Weren't you very energetic just now? What's wrong? You've lost your temper after playing around for a while? Yi Fan asked with a wicked smile, as he picked up the ghost of the Netherworld ghost that had killed Akatsuki. The ghost of the Netherworld ghost slowly raised its head and glared fiercely at Yi Fan. Then, it lowered its head again. Oh, you're still quite energetic, Yi Fan said as he grabbed the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's hair and forced it to raise its head. Where's Hong Ji's soul? Hand it over. Yi Fan leaned his face closer to the ghost of the Netherworld ghost and said with narrowed eyes. Heh heh heh. The ghost of the Netherworld ghost, whose hair was being pulled by Yi Fan, raised its head high and stared at Yi Fan with disdain as it started to laugh strangely. You should just give up. The ghost of the Netherworld ghost gritted its teeth and laughed sinisterly. That woman's soul, you can't find it, oh? Is that so? Yi Fan's lips curled up as he asked with a wicked smile. The ghost of the Netherworld ghost snorted coldly as it closed its eyes and stopped talking. Since you won't give me Hong Ji's soul, then I can only find it myself. Yi Fan smiled with narrowed eyes. Hearing Yi Fan's words, the ghost of the Netherworld ghost suddenly raised its head with a shocked expression. Buzz, as soon as Yi Fan's voice fell, two bright red lights shot out from his eyes and went straight between the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's eyebrows. As soon as the red lights entered the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's eyebrows, it instantly let out a tragic cry. At this moment, its entire head was illuminated by the two red lights that Yi Fan shot out, making it look like burning charcoal. Yi Fan whistled and then moved his eyes, slowly moving the two red lights down. The red lights went down the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's neck. The ghost of the Netherworld ghost screamed in pain as the scarlet chains rattled loudly. Heh heh heh. Found it. When the two red lights reached the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's chest, Yi Fan opened his mouth and laughed. He retracted the two red lights from his eyes and then slowly raised his left hand. Buzz, Yi Fan's left hand glowed red and a bloody light shot out in all directions. Seeing Yi Fan raise his hand, the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's pupils instantly shrank. Whoosh! Yi Fan's right hand grabbed the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's hair, and then his left hand, which was glowing with a bloody light, went straight for the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's chest. Puff! A red light flashed and Yi Fan's left hand went straight into the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's chest. Ugh! The ghost of the Netherworld ghost's eyes were wide open and its mouth was agape. Its face was contorted and it let out a gasping sound. Yi Fan's lips curled. He curled his fingers into a fist and slowly pulled his arm out of the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's body. Buzz! As Yi Fan's arm was slowly pulled out of the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's body, dozens of green lights shot out from the gaps of Yi Fan's bloody fist. Smack! Yi Fan casually swung his hand that was holding the ghost of the Netherworld ghost's hair. Clang! After the sound of the chains, the ghost of the Netherworld ghost fell into the void. Its eyes were blank and its body was twitching all over. Its body became even more transparent. In its chest, a fist-sized black hole could be seen. When the ghost of the Netherworld ghost saw this, they trembled all over and did not even dare to breathe. The scarlet chains had already made them wish they were dead. If Yi Fan were to dig out another hole in their chests, the pain they would suffer would be unimaginable. Yi Fan slowly unfolded his fist. Buzz! As the green brilliance spread out, a dazzling 3-inch figure of light with flowing green light stood on Yi Fan's palm. This 3-inch glowing figure was none other than Akatsuki's primordial spirit. Seeing that Akatsuki's primordial spirit had been obtained, Yi Fan's eyes flashed and a smile appeared on his face. This scene shocked the devil and monster supremes who were high up in the sky. Yi Fan's smile was as pure and bright as a child's. Compared to just now, it was like a completely different person. Yi Fan, who was in his 100% devil monarch state, was able to show such a pure smile. This stunned the devil and monster supremes. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would definitely not have believed this scene. The monster supremes were tongue-tied and shocked. No wonder this person could transcend the heavenly lightning tribulation with his devil monarch body. This eldritch who was both good and evil really lived up to his name. A devil monarch with a bright smile. Who would believe this? Swoosh, Yi Fan gently raised the 3-inch glowing figure in his hand and slowly placed it in between his eyebrows. Buzz, the blood-red swastika in between Yi Fan's eyebrows, suddenly shone brightly. Swoosh, the dazzling 3-inch glowing figure slowly flew up from Yi Fan's palm and slowly flew into Yi Fan's eyebrows. He had placed Akatsuki's primordial spirit into his own primordial spirit. Yi Fan had a reason for doing this. Akatsuki's primordial spirit had stayed in the ghost spirit body for a long time and was contaminated with a lot of violent chi. If it was not cleansed, even if Akatsuki was restored to her original state, she would become violent by nature. Because of this, Yi Fan had placed Akatsuki's primordial spirit in between his eyebrows and used his domineering primordial spirit to absorb the violent chi on it and completely cleanse it. Brother Yi, I've thought of a way. Just as Yi Fan had placed Akatsuki's primordial spirit in between his eyebrows, Onijiro's voice rang in Yi Fan's mind. What way? Yi Fan asked Onijiro with his thoughts. He now had the devil monarch's body and his thoughts were incomparably strong. Of course, he could use his thoughts to answer Onijiro. There are 2 ways. Onijiro's voice rang out again. One is to use your yin-yang ghost seal to absorb them. However, this will only treat the symptoms and will not kill them. The other way is to move the netherworld ghost ships high up in the sky and completely separate them from the sea. Then, destroy them in the sky. The reason why the 7 ghost ships and the ghost spirits had undying bodies was because they were closely connected to the sea, which provided them with the opportunity to absorb souls. The ghost ships were the medium between the ghost spirits and the sea. Therefore, as long as the ghost ships were separated from the sea and directly destroyed, the ghost spirits' undying bodies would be completely destroyed. Use the second way. Yi Fan replied Onijiro with his thoughts. Actually, long before the battle, Yi Fan had already thought of using the yin-yang ghost seal to subdue the netherworld ghost spirits and was prepared to do so. However, when he found out that the ghost spirits could absorb the souls of the creatures in the sea, Yi Fan immediately dismissed the idea. Since they could absorb souls, they could naturally absorb yin spirit chi. And within the yin-yang ghost seal, there was an endless amount of yin spirit chi. If he absorbed them into the yin-yang ghost seal, the spirit beast Fire Kirin would be able to guard it. However, these ghost immortal level ghost spirits experts would madly absorb yin spirit chi within the yin-yang ghost seal. This way, not only would the ghost spirit's cultivation not be weakened, but it would also skyrocket. Moreover, these ghost spirits were extremely vicious and evil. Their crimes were unforgivable and deserved to be killed. Chapter 8:16. When Onijiro's voice sounded in the minds of all the experts, all of them squinted their eyes at the same time. They had finally found the weakness of the netherworld ghouls. They could finally go to war. Whoosh, far away in the sky, 2 bright balls of light, one white and one black, flew toward them like shooting stars. The tail of light was 30 feet long. Within the light, the handsome Chi Yao in a black robe and Yamada Shingo in a white robe and a veiled Yamada Shingo holding the bone-eroding sword and the air-shattering saber respectively broke through the sky. Behind the 2 of them, dozens of netherworld ghouls in black robes and black hats were following them closely with shining sabers in their hands. On the surface of the sea, 5 netherworld ghouls broke through the waves and made a comeback. After hearing Onijiro's plan to defeat the enemy in their minds, Chi Yao and Yamada Shingo, who were in a stalemate with the netherworld ghouls, were delighted. Then, they quickly turned around and returned directly. They wanted to gather all the netherworld ghouls in one place, and then destroy them all. When Yi Fan in a blood-red robe and with blood-red eyes and black pupils appeared in front of them, the 2 of them couldn't help but gasp. At this time, Yi Fan's blood-red flames soared into the sky like a towering mountain. His blood-red hair flowed like a waterfall. The swastika written upside down between his eyebrows was flowing with blood-red light, shining brightly. In his hand, there was a dazzling scarlet chain that was dozens of feet long. Dozens of netherworld ghouls, who had no een spirits and were on the verge of dissipating, were firmly bound by this huge scarlet chain and couldn't move. Demon King Chi Yao, who was in the black light, said word by word with a pale face. Ever since he knew that Yi Fan was the king of the demon realm, Chi Yao had always wanted to see how strong Yi Fan's demon king form was with his own eyes. He wanted to see if the rumors were true, and if he had unlimited power that could strengthen the opponent he met. Today, he finally got what he wanted and saw the full form of Yi Fan's demon king form. Heaven-defying power, endless murderous intent, terrifying aura, and crazy personality. To be able to toy with dozens of ghost immortal level 1,000-year-old netherworld ghouls like grasshoppers, this was the strength of the Demon King. Thinking of this, a layer of cold sweat appeared on Chi Yao's forehead. With Yi Fan's current power, he could kill him almost 100 times in an instant. He was a little regretful that he didn't stay here to watch the Demon King's domineering. Earlier on, he had only seen the sky filled with red light, loud noises, and surging waves. He had no idea that Yi Fan had already transformed into the Devil Monarch. Within the white brilliance, Shingo Yamada, whose clothes were as white as snow, had a grave expression on his face. Just now, when he was fighting with the ghost spirits in the distant airspace, he had felt a powerful spiritual pressure that he had never felt before appear in an instant. The strength of this spiritual pressure was something he had never seen before since he was born. At the same time that this spiritual pressure appeared, a boundless killing intent also appeared. The killing intent was so strong that even he felt a chill run down his spine. As soon as the spiritual pressure and killing intent appeared, he had already guessed who it was. Apart from Yi Fan, the monarch of the demon realm who had transcended the heavenly tribulation, who else had such ability? However, even though he had guessed correctly that the person releasing the powerful energy was Yi Fan, when he saw Yi Fan's demon monarch form with his own eyes, he couldn't help but be shocked on the spot. Yi Fan was too powerful, so powerful that he was like a god. In all fairness, if Yi Fan wanted to kill him now, he would probably be instantly killed by Yi Fan before he could even draw his sword. Onijiro, who was sitting cross-legged, slowly opened his eyes and stood up from the void. Onijiro was not too shocked by Yi Fan's demon lord form. The reason was simple. Although he had been meditating with his eyes closed, the scene just now did not escape his eyes. His psychokinesis was so strong that even with his eyes closed, the scene would still appear in his mind. Phew! Onijiro, who had stood up, let out a long breath and said, "It's finally our turn to counterattack." As he spoke, he walked slowly to Chinkong Iha. Chinkong Iha turned to look at Onijiro and smiled without saying a word. Good, good, good. On the deck of Wuji, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said the word, "good" 3 times in a row. When Onijiro was passing the message, he naturally didn't forget Matsumoto Takeyoshi. At this moment, Matsumoto Takeyoshi was inexplicably excited and emotional. It was their turn to attack now. Matsumoto Takeyoshi put away the binoculars in his hand, turned around, and said loudly to the experts, "Experts, listen to my command." Whoosh! All the experts lowered their heads in unison, and their actions were in perfect synchronization. Everyone, attack! Kill them all! Don't leave a single one alive! Matsumoto Takeyoshi gave the order to the experts. Yes! The experts were all excited and replied in unison. Just now they had been watching others fight, but they didn't have a chance to use their skills. This made them angry. Now that Onijiro had found a way to kill the hell spirits, they had to show their skills. Buzz! The moment Matsumoto Takeyoshi gave the order to attack, the experts began to circulate their spiritual energy. The green flame of the green-eyed boy, the blue flame of Sato Kawaki, the gray flame of Kamehameha, and the purple flame of Funakoshi Shinichi, all the experts released their spiritual energy and shot up into the sky. Attack! Matsumoto Takeyoshi shouted. Ting! 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 The experts used their spiritual energy and shot up into the sky from the deck of the battleship. All kinds of colorful lights shot up into the sky like a meteor shower. Only Matsumoto Takeyoshi and a few hundred ninjas were left on the deck of the battleship. Pass down my orders. Turn the Wuji around and head towards the Netherworld ghost ship at full speed. Matsumoto Takeyoshi, whose gray robes fluttered in the wind, ordered. All the experts were already in the battle. He wanted to use the cannons on the battleship to support them. Yes. One of the ninjas bowed to Matsumoto Takeyoshi and left to make the necessary arrangements. Hell spirits today, I will turn all of you into hell spirits. Matsumoto Takeyoshi gritted his teeth and muttered to himself. Swoosh! Swoosh! With a flash of light, the black-robed Chi Yao and the white-robed Yamada Shingo appeared beside Onaji Lang and Kazuko Koizumi. The four of them stood side by side and faced the dozens of hell spirits. Swoosh! 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 The group of ghost spirits experts who were chasing after them instantly stopped in the air less than 300 feet away from the four of them. The hell spirits in black robes and black hats stood in a straight line in the air. Each of them held a sword in their hands and stared at the four of them with their black eyes. Their eyes were hollow and their faces were ferocious. This time, we'll be able to make a comeback, the Chi Yao with the bone-eroding sword said with narrowed eyes. You guys can rest now. It's our turn. Swoosh! 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 As Kamehameha's voice came from behind, more than 10 lights appeared beside the four of them. All the experts had gathered. Even the man in green who had yet to recover from his injuries and Chiyao Yamamoto who had been beaten black and blue by Yi Fan were among them. More than 10 experts stood in a straight line in the air, their robes fluttering in the wind. You guys are not too late, Chiyao said with a smile. At this moment, the two sides were facing each other in the air and their morale was high. On one side were dozens of thousand-year-old hell spirits at the level of ghost immortals. On the other side were more than 10 powerful experts. The battle between the two sides was about to break out. At this moment, the 7 fully restored Netherworld ghost ships were also gathered in a straight line on the sea below. Whoosh! A bright red light shot down from the sky and stopped right in front of the group of experts. Within the red light, Yi Fan, with his blood-red robes and blood-red hair dancing wildly, looked at the hell spirits opposite him with a sinister smile. Ba Ji, when he saw the hell spirits being tortured by Yi Fan in the scarlet chain and were on the verge of dissipating, a tall and burly hell spirit expert was instantly enraged. Look, your companions are here, Yi Fan said to the hell spirits in the scarlet chain in a mixed male and female voice. Ba Jie, Ba Jie. The hell spirits opposite him were enraged and the black light in their eyes intensified. The corners of Yi Fan's lips curled up and he smiled without saying anything. I will crush your souls and turn you into food in our stomach. You will never be reincarnated. The hell spirits said viciously to the expert. Chi Yao smirked and said, A cooked duck, a stubborn one. Ba Jie. The hell spirits cursed and raised their swords in front of their eyes. Whoosh, 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 all the evil spirits gripped the gleaming evil spirit sabers in their hands tightly and assumed battle stances. It was obvious that the hell spirit who was cursing was the leader of the hell spirit. Cha, 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 as the roars of tigers and dragons filled the air, the experts drew their swords out of their scabbards. The swords were like a forest and the light from their swords was dazzling. They dragged their swords behind their backs and were ready to fight. 10,000 spirits devouring souls. The leader of the Hell Spirits roared. Woo! As soon as the leader of the Hell Spirits finished speaking, the 7 netherworld ghost ships on the sea below suddenly let out a tragic wail. Hua la! The countless skulls embedded in the 7 netherworld ghost ships suddenly turned and faced the sky. The scene was so terrifying that it made one's scalp tingle. Kill! The leader of the Hell Spirits roared. Woo! Tens of thousands of ghastly ghosts gushed out from the skulls. The ghostly shadows were like a black cloud that covered the sky and pounced on the experts who were floating in the air. Kill! 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 The leader of the Hell Spirits waved his sword and gave the order to the tens of thousand-year-old Hell Spirits behind him to kill. Woo ya sa! Kill! The Hell Spirits waved their swords and turned into billowing black smoke as they charged at the experts. I will suppress the Hell Spirit. I will leave the netherworld ghost ships and the other Hell Spirits to you. As Yi Fan spoke, he swung the scarlet chain in his hand rapidly. Then, he swung it at the dozens of ghost spirit experts who were charging at the very front. Hua la! The scarlet chain glowed red and instantly became more than 100 feet long as it flew toward the Hell Spirits. Swoosh! When the Hell Spirits saw this, they immediately used their movement skills and dodged at high speed. Having learned their lesson from the Hell Spirits on the scarlet chain, they did not dare to be careless. He he he! Yi Fan let out a sinister laugh. Hua la la! Just as the Hell Spirits were feeling smug about successfully dodging the scarlet chain glowed red and turned into 100. Hua! Chapter 8:17. The moment the hundreds of scarlet chains tightened around them, the pupils of the ghost spirits constricted. They did not expect Yi Fan's scarlet chains to have such a transformative ability. Swoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, the ghost spirits raised the gleaming evil spirit sabers in their hands and slashed down at the scarlet chains that were closing in on them from all directions. They wanted to cut the scarlet chains in half. However, they were too naive. If the evil spirit sabers could cut the scarlet chains, the dozens of 1,000-year-old ghost spirits would not have been tied to them and could not move at all. Boom! 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 The evil spirit sabers slashed at the scarlet chains that were closing in on them, and a loud bang was heard. Bang! 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 The moment they came into contact with the scarlet chains, the dozens of evil spirit sabers in the hands of the ghost spirits broke into pieces in an instant. At this moment, the ghost spirits felt a chill in their hearts. Compared to the demon king in front of them, the difference in strength between them was not just a little bit. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. They suddenly had an ominous premonition. This time, it might be the last time they made a move in 1,000 years. If they were to fall into the hands of the Demon King, they would definitely suffer the same fate as those ghost spirits who had been tortured before. They could neither live nor die. Swoosh! After breaking the evil spirit sabers in the hands of the ghost spirits, the scarlet chains formed a bloody net of light that did not slow down at all. In an instant, it trapped the dozens of ghost spirits in black robes. Swoosh! The moment they came into contact with the scarlet chains, countless black smoke rose from the bodies of the ghost spirits, making a sizzling sound. Ah! As the black smoke rose, the ghost spirits immediately let out heart-wrenching screams. Yi Fan smiled sinisterly. Swoosh! Swoosh! He whistled as he slowly dragged the scarlet chains, dragging the hundreds of 1,000-year-old ghost spirits toward him. With just one move, Yi Fan had managed to subdue all the ferocious spirits that were charging at him. Woo! When the ghosts saw that their leaders were instantly subdued by Yi Fan, they let out a shrill roar at the same time. The sky was filled with ghostly shadows like black clouds, rushing up from below. The ghostly cries resounded in the air, shaking the heavens. It's our turn. Go! Kamehameha said loudly as he dragged the dazzling jade-breaking saber in his hand. As he spoke, he activated his movement technique and charged downwards. Kill! Under the leadership of Kamehameha, all the experts roared in unison. They swung the glowing sabers in their hands and dove down from the sky, heading straight for the myriad of ghosts. Among the experts, the short green-eyed boy in a green cloak took the lead. The second-ranked Haruko Sakuragi, the third-ranked Kumi Mochizuki, and the fourth-ranked Kano Nagato followed closely behind. They were the favorite disciples of the Dongying demonic king. They were the best at slaying ghosts and hiding spirit. Naturally, they had to be at the forefront. Swoosh! The green-eyed boy who was at the forefront charged downwards with his saber in his right hand, and his left hand formed a sword in between his eyebrows. Then, he closed his eyes and concentrated. Swoosh! With a flash of green light, a green light talisman appeared between his sword fingers out of thin air. The talisman was 7 inches long and 3 inches wide. Green light flowed around it and shone brightly. On the green talisman, there were a few lines of runes that were written in bold and powerful strokes. 4-in formation. After the green talisman appeared, the green-eyed boy opened his eyes and shouted softly. Swoosh! As soon as the green-eyed boy finished speaking, the green talisman between his sword fingers suddenly burst into green light and started to burn. The green flame illuminated the green-eyed boy's pure green eyes. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew past and 4 black shadows appeared in the air around the green-eyed boy. The 4 figures were tall and big, and all of them wore huge black cloaks and pointy black hats. They lowered their heads and maintained the same speed as the green-eyed boy as they floated around him. The 4 of them were surrounded by yin qi and did not look human at all. This was the formation that the green-eyed boy had activated when he fought with Jinshan in Miaojiang, the 4-in formation. Compared to the past, the green-eyed boy's skills had improved by a level. When he activated the 4-in formation in Miaojiang, he had used the yellow talisman to activate the formation. At this moment, he was using the light talisman that was condensed from telekinesis. Ever since the battle with Jinshan, the green-eyed boy felt that he was not strong enough. Therefore, during the period when he left Miaojiang, he had been studying spells in his spare time to improve his cultivation. 4-in fusion. After the 4 ghosts appeared, the green-eyed boy immediately used the strongest move of the 4-in formation, 4-in fusion. Whoosh! The 4 black-robed ghosts with pointed hats instantly turned into 4 streams of black gas and quickly gathered together to form a high-speed rotating black gas pillar. The gas pillar was more than 10 feet tall and was like a huge black tornado. Whoosh! As the black tornado gradually formed, a 70 to 80 feet tall giant ghost appeared out of thin air. This ghost was wearing a pointed black hat, an ink-black robe, and a pair of black curved boots. It was surrounded by black gas. What was even more inconceivable was that this gigantic ghost actually had 4 faces: joy, anger, sorrow, joy. 4 different expressions appeared on the 4 ghostly faces, causing one's hair to stand on end and shudder in fear. Kill! The green-eyed boy who was descending from the sky used his battle sword to point at the ghosts and shouted loudly. Wuyav! The black-robed ghost roared, and its huge head instantly turned around on its neck, putting on a mournful expression. The giant ghost general stretched out its sharp claws in the air. Buzz! As a dazzling black light spread out from the giant ghost's claws, a black battle sword that was more than 30 feet long appeared. The black light of the battle sword was dazzling and black gas lingered around it. It was ghostly and murderous. This battle sword was none other than the Yin world's divine weapon that the Japanese Ghost King had personally forged, the Black Wind Sword. The material used to make this sword was different from ordinary swords. It was neither gold nor jade, neither copper nor iron. Instead, it was made with yin qi and was completely formless. With just a thought, this sword would appear in the hands of its owner. Swoosh! After the Black Wind Sword appeared, the black-robed ghost held the sword with one hand and turned into a black light, charging straight down. After the black-robed ghost charged, the green-eyed boy did not stay idle. He formed a seal with his left hand and used his secret technique again. Swoosh! Several green lights shot out from the green-eyed boy's body. In the blink of an eye, one green-eyed boy turned into 8 green-eyed boys. Green screen 8 extreme slash. The 8 green-eyed boys raised their battle swords above their heads and slashed down. Swoosh! 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 8 green lights shot down from the sky. Their speed was as fast as lightning. The green-eyed boy was really going all out this time. Yi Fan was not the only one who had been suppressing the evil fire in his heart all this time. This time, he vented his anger on the ghosts. When the green-eyed boy attacked, the blue-robed man, Sato Kawakai, also attacked. He used all his strength to activate the blue battle sword in his hand, the Ghost Flame Sword. Whoosh! Countless blue ghostly flames rose from the Ghost Flame's sword and burned fiercely. The battle sword in his hand was also extraordinary. The material used to forge this sword was iron extracted from the ashes of the dead. The flames on the Ghost Flame sword were even more powerful. The ghostly flames on the sword were incomparable to the flames of the mortal world. They were fire and extremely powerful. If an ordinary person were to come into contact with the sparks from the saber, they would be instantly incinerated into nothingness. Not even their bones would be left behind. The power of this sword could be said to be unparalleled. Nether 100 Ghost slash. Sato Kawakai roared. He raised the Ghost Flame saber high above his head and slashed down from the air. Swoosh! As the blue light curtain fell down like a waterfall, a huge blue saber arc was released from the Ghost Flame saber. The sword arc was more than 10 feet long, surrounded by blue flames and raging ghostly flames. The green-eyed boy glanced at Sato Kawakai and smiled. It was said that Sato Kawakai was extremely powerful and his cultivation was domineering. The Ghost Flame sword in his hand was also famous in Japan. It was one of a kind. He thought that his attack would be domineering. Now, it seemed that it was just an undeserved reputation. The green-eyed boy thought to himself. However, just as he was feeling proud of his domineering attack, the Nether 100 Ghost slash that had flown more than 10 feet away suddenly changed. Swoosh! 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 The huge blue ghostly flame sword arc multiplied from 1 to 100, and from 100 to 1,000. The ghostly flame sword arc danced in the air and whistled down. Its power was not inferior to the green-eyed boy's 8 extreme slash at all. The green-eyed boy's smile disappeared and was replaced by a frown. Good move! The green-eyed boy exclaimed in his heart. Sato Kawakai's Nether 100 Ghost slash was just like its name. It was powerful and domineering. Jade-breaking light slash. Just as the green-eyed boy was shocked by Sato Kawakai's attack, Kamehameha, who was wearing a green-gray robe and holding the jade-breaking saber, made his move. Sword Chi, soaring Sword Chi. The domineering gray sword Chi formed a huge lightsaber that was more than 10 feet tall and 30 to 40 feet wide. Kamehameha, who was surrounded by a dazzling gray light, roared and slashed down the jaw-dropping huge lightsaber. Whoosh! A huge, semicircular gray light curtain poured down from the sky. Whirlwind Ghost slash. Astral Wind slash. Flying Flame 100 slash. The other experts did not want to be outdone and made their moves. Boom! Boom! With a loud boom, the saber lights of all the experts rushed into the midst of the 10,000 ghosts. Woo! Roar! Among the thousands of ghosts, the primordial spirits of the thousands of ghosts that were charging at the front were instantly shattered by the experts' moves. They turned into black smoke and disappeared. Even Onijiro and the other 3 who were standing still could not help but squint their eyes. Not bad. Chiyao, who was holding the bone-eroding sword, said with a smile. Among the experts, Funakoshi Shinichi, who was wearing a navy robe and white clogs, did not make any moves. Chapter 8:18. Wuya 10,000 ghosts rushed forward wave after wave, pouncing on the experts. Swoosh! Swoosh. Swoosh, the elites unleashed their ultimate techniques as they swung their swords up and down. Swoosh. Swoosh. Swoosh, wherever the saber light flashed, countless ghosts were instantly turned into black smoke. In the blink of an eye, 1/3 of the ghosts were killed by the elites. Huff, just as the experts were getting fiercer and fiercer, countless plumes of black smoke once again gushed out from the skulls on the 7 netherworld bone ships. Within the black smoke, ghostly figures were everywhere, covering the sky and the earth. Seeing this, the elites frowned. The ghosts that they had killed earlier had been restored. As long as the 7 netherworld ghost ships were connected to the sea, they would be unable to kill them all. Haruko, think of a way to get the netherworld ghost ships into the air. The green-eyed boy shouted at Haruko Sakuragi, who was behind him. Yes, senior brother. Haruko Sakuragi, who was wearing a pink dress and had a beautiful face, replied loudly as she slashed the ghosts in front of her with her swords. As soon as the green-eyed boy finished speaking, the hundreds of 1,000-year-old ghosts that were tied to Yifan's scarlet chains suddenly raised their heads in disbelief. They did not expect that the elites would discover the flaw of their immortality. Don't let them get the ships into the air. The elite ghost who killed Akatsuki was the first to recover from the shock and shouted loudly. Quick, all ghost ships leave this area. Quick. The leader of the netherworld ghost ships also recovered from the shock and ordered the 7 netherworld ghost ships to retreat. As long as the 7 netherworld bone ships were in the sea, they would be immortal. Once the 7 netherworld ghost ships were destroyed by the elites in the air, they would lose the protection of the sea and their immortality. At that time, as long as they were killed by the elites, they would be turned into ashes and would never be able to recover. Woo-ya! After hearing the leader's order, a group of ghosts immediately attacked Haruko Sakuragi, who was behind the green-eyed boy. Nearly 1,000 ghostly shadows twisted together into a black pillar of light that shot straight towards Haruko. This woman had the ability to control water. She could control the seawater and raise the warship high in the sky, so she had to be killed. At the same time, the 7 netherworld ghost ships below began to turn around rapidly, preparing to escape from this place. 3rd, 4th, protect Haruko. Green-eyed child waved his katana and blocked in front of Haruko Sakuragi. He shouted at the 3rd-ranked Kumi Mochizuki and the 4th-ranked Kato Nagino. Yes, senior brother. The charming Mochizuki Kumi and the tall Kano Nagato answered in unison. They both used their movement techniques and arrived beside Haruko. The 3 of them gripped their swords tightly and moved closer to each other, surrounding Haruko in the middle. Whoosh, the black pillar of light arrived in an instant. Yeah! The green-eyed boy activated the battle saber in his hand and slashed down from above. Boom! The black beam of light instantly collided with the green-eyed boy's saber. Whoosh, the gigantic black pillar of light was directly split apart by the green-eyed boy's saber. Phew, the black beam of light split into 2, bypassing the blue-eyed boy and attacking Haruko Sakuragi once again. Both Kumi Mochizuki and Kato Nagino pushed their cultivation to the maximum and slashed at the incoming ghosts. For a moment, the shadows of ghosts and swords filled the air. However, there were too many ghosts attacking Haruko Sakuragi. Countless ghosts kept gathering on the black beam of light. It seemed like they would not stop until Haruko Sakuragi was dead. Under the full attack of the ghosts, the 3 boys' spiritual energy was gradually depleted. Senior brother, Haruko Sakuragi, who was surrounded by the 3 boys, saw the situation and shouted loudly. Don't worry about us. Quick, use the Imperial Water Technique to lift the ghost ship. The green-eyed boy gritted his teeth and said as he resisted the attack of the ghosts with all his might. Haruko Sakuragi frowned and immediately closed her eyes to concentrate and used the Imperial Water Technique. Buzz, countless rays of light burst out from Haruko Sakuragi's body. Imperial Water Technique, overturn rivers and seas. Haruko Sakuragi's eyes widened and shouted loudly. Boom! Or with a loud bang, a pillar of water instantly gushed out from the sea below. The water pillar was more than 10 feet thick, and it spun out from the sea like a dragon emerging from the sea. Boom! The towering water pillar directly lifted one of the netherworld bone ships into the air, straight up into the sky. Whoosh! The gigantic netherworld skeleton ship creaked and slowly rose into the sky. Fall! Haruko Sakuragi shouted softly. Whoosh! The water pillar that looked like a giant dragon fell back into the sea in an instant, causing a huge ripple. At this moment, the netherworld skeleton ship had already left the sea and was in midair. The moment the netherworld ghost ship leaped into the air, Bamu Chongqing, who was dressed in a snow-white ninja outfit, suddenly narrowed his eyes. He was the faction leader of Koga-ryu. Although he was not proficient in the art of killing ghosts and spirits, his combat power was not weaker than the other members. Now that the ghost ship was in the air, it was time for him to show his strength. In terms of destructive power, he was the expert among the experts. Bamu Chongqing held his sword with one hand and swung it in the air. Swoosh! A huge white sword arc appeared out of thin air and went straight to the netherworld skeleton ship. The sword arc was as bright as snow, dazzling and eye-catching. Cha! The enormous saber arc cut the white bone warship flying in the sky in half from the bow to the stern, as if it were cutting tofu. What a sharp sword aura! After seeing Bamu Chongqing's sword skill, Chi Yao frowned and said in surprise. Yagi Long Kiyoshi's blade chi was all about sharpness. There were no fancy or dazzling moves. His sword skill was simple, direct, and unparalleled in sharpness. Unfortunately, although his sword skill was powerful, it did not have a large range of destruction. If he could improve his sword skill and increase the range of his attack, his combat power would definitely increase by 100 times. What a pity that such a sharp sword aura! Chi Yao thought to himself. However, the next scene made him change his mind. After the dazzling white saber light cut the netherworld bone ship in half, it immediately changed direction. Swoosh! The huge sword aura drew a beautiful arc in the air and then cut the netherworld skeleton ship horizontally. The sword aura could actually change direction. Chi Yao narrowed his eyes. Cha! 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 Bamu Chongqing's sword aura seemed to have a mind of its own. It shuttled back and forth within the netherworld ghost ship and cut at high speed. Its speed was so fast that it seemed as if hundreds of sword auras had appeared at the same time. Before the netherworld skeleton ship began to fall, the entire ship had been cut into pieces by Bamu Chongqing's domineering sword aura. Bone fragments filled the sky and fell down. Good move. Good move. To be able to control the domineering sword aura to be so sharp and yet delicate, this Bamu Chongqing's sword skill was truly unparalleled in the world. When the bone fragments fell down like rain, the gray-robed Kamehameha made his move. The corner of his mouth curled up and he flipped his left hand. Ting! A sparkling flame appeared on the tip of his middle finger. The orange flame flickered continuously. Pa! Kamehameha lightly flicked the firefly on his finger. Shwa! The fingernail-sized orange flame turned into a bright red line of fire and rushed into the bone fragments. What can such a small flame do? The green-eyed boy struggled to resist the attacks of the group of ghosts as he wondered in his heart. The green-eyed boy did not dare to have any doubts about Kamehameha's strength. This person could be considered as an elder in the Japanese martial arts world. What he could not figure out was how powerful such a small flame could be. Has this Kamehameha gone senile? A single spark starts a prairie fire. Break! Just as the green-eyed boy was in doubt, Kamehameha spoke. Boom! As soon as the wooden turtle crane finished speaking, the sparkling flame that rushed into the rain of bones instantly turned into a fireball that was several hundred feet in size and suddenly exploded. Whoosh! The flames in the sky dispersed. The entire airspace instantly turned into a sea of fire. The bone fragments instantly turned into green smoke and disappeared into thin air. In the blink of an eye, the netherworld skeleton ship disappeared in the sky. As soon as the netherworld skeleton ship disappeared, the dozen or so ghost spirit experts on Yi Fan's red chain suddenly screamed in horror. Obviously, the destroyed netherworld skeleton ship was the medium for them to absorb the spiritual energy in the sea. Now that the ship was destroyed in the sky, the undying bodies of the dozen or so ghost spirits disappeared along with it. One ship, the black-eyed Yi Fan said with a smile as he held the red chain in his hand. As soon as the netherworld skeleton ship was destroyed, the number of Een ghosts attacking crazily decreased. After the thousands of Een ghosts were killed, they did not recover. Whoosh, just as the spirits of the experts were greatly boosted, the two netherworld ghost ships on the sea suddenly left the sea and rose into the sky. Under the two netherworld skeleton ships, a familiar figure appeared in front of them. This person was wearing a navy blue robe and white wooden clogs. His robe was fluttering in the wind, and his eyes were filled with determination. It was Funakoshi Shinichi. Chinkong Iha was shocked. Funakoshi Shinichi stretched out his arms and held a netherworld ghost ship in each hand as he soared up from the sea. What a powerful strength! Everyone's expression changed when they saw this. To be able to push two netherworld skeleton ships that were 3 times bigger than Wuji out of the sea, what kind of strength was this? It was rumored that this person went into the sea alone at night to save the starving refugees. He dragged 2 mountain-like whales onto the shore with his bare hands in order to save thousands of people. It seemed like this was not a rumor. Whoosh, as soon as Funakoshi Shinichi soared out of the sea, he exerted strength in his arms. Whoosh, the 2 netherworld ghost ships left his hands and soared up into the sky. Black Rock Mountain Crushing Fist. Following a loud roar, the burly Yokoyama Yugo, who was wearing a green samurai suit, immediately attacked. He retracted his right arm and threw a punch at the netherworld ghost ships that were soaring up from the sea. Boom! A 5-zhang long black fist shadow was thrown out from Yokoyama Yugo's iron fist. The black fist shadow shone with a dazzling black light. On top of the giant fist, there were dozens of red lightning bolts swimming around. Mountain-shattering island palm. Fujita Tsuyoshi, who was wearing a large kimono and straw rattan shoes, immediately followed after Yokoyama Yugo and attacked. Whoosh, a several zhang long brown light palm shot out from Fujita Tsuyoshi's hand and went straight for the netherworld ghost ships. Chapter 8:19. Boom. Boom. 2 deafening sounds could be heard as Yokoyama Yugo's black fist and Fujita Tsuyoshi's brown palm landed heavily on the 2 netherworld white bone ships. White bones flew everywhere and bone fragments flew everywhere. The 2 white bone ships were instantly torn apart, exploding apart. A rain of bones filled the sky, scattering everywhere, pouring down in torrents. Fire stream slash. Chiyao Yamamoto, who was wearing a red robe, also brazenly attacked. He waved the saber in his hand at the sky filled with bone rain and shouted lightly. Whoosh! 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 More than 10 huge red fireballs whizzed out from the tip of his saber and went straight for the bone rain. There were a total of 13 red fireballs, each of which was about 10 feet in size and surrounded by raging flames. Boom! 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 After the 13 huge fireballs rushed into the bone rain, they instantly exploded. In an instant, the sky was filled with a sea of fire. Chi! 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 In the sea of fire, the bone rain let out a sizzling sound and instantly turned into black smoke and dissipated into thin air. Although Chiyao Yamamoto was like a loser in front of Yi Fan, his cultivation was still not to be underestimated. Chiyao Yamamoto could be said to be proficient in the 5 elements escape technique, mutant technique, and blade technique. This was also the reason why he was so conceited in the past. 3 ships, Yi Fan said casually with an evil smile. On the scarlet chains, Dozens of netherworld white bone spirits turned pale and their pupils constricted. They looked at the netherworld white bone ships that had turned into ashes in shock, and could not say a single word. They had lost. They had completely lost. For thousands of years, they had been invincible and had unparalleled combat power. With their immortal bodies, they could go on a rampage and do whatever they wanted. They had never thought that they would lose so miserably today. Hundreds of thousand-year-old ghost spirits at the level of ghost immortals, 7 nether bone battleships, tens of thousands of Een spirits and ghosts, and the immortal bodies that they were so proud of. Such a powerful force was instantly defeated by a bunch of fleshly bodies. The reason why they lost was all because of the 2 experts on the other side. One of them was the king of the demon realm, whose cultivation was heaven-defying, and who had subdued hundreds of thousand-year-old ghosts in one move. The other was the black-robed man with unparalleled wisdom, who had found the weaknesses of the netherworld ghosts in a short time, on a gyro. With these 2 capable people, as well as the other powerful experts, it was not surprising that they, the nether ghosts, would lose today. Let's not just stand there and watch. Let's go help and end this quickly. Mr. Kimmy, who was floating in the air, turned his head and said to Chi Yao, Kazuko Kazuko, and Shingo Yamada. The outcome of this battle had already been decided. It was a foregone conclusion. What they needed to do now was to end this fierce battle as soon as possible. While saying that, Anima Lang disappeared into thin air with a whoosh. The show is almost over. I will go and help clean up the battlefield. Chi Yao smiled and waved her sleeves. She turned into black smoke and disappeared into thin air. Mr. Ichikaku, we will push the remaining ghost ships into the air. You can destroy them. Shingo Yamada turned around and said to Chinkong Iha. In terms of spiritual chi, combat strength, special techniques, and saber skills, Chinkong Iha was the best in all aspects, especially his technique of Chidori. Its destructive power was strong, its attack range was wide, and its attack speed was fast. It could be said that one move could kill many people. Leaving him here to destroy the netherworld ghost ships was the most suitable choice. Chinkong Iha nodded at Shingo Yamada, indicating that he agreed. Swoosh. Shingo Yamada nodded at Chinkong Iha and disappeared into thin air. Arg, seeing that the 3 netherworld ghost ships had been destroyed, the Een ghosts in the sky went crazy. They roared crazily and launched their final attack. Bang! 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 The countless skulls that were embedded in the 4 netherworld ghost ships detached themselves from the ships and flew into the sky at high speed. Arg, in an instant, the densely packed skulls let out mournful whimpering sounds as they shot towards the sky like a torrential downpour, whistling towards the experts. Be careful of these skulls. The green-eyed boy shouted at the elite. Do not let them touch your body. These Een ghosts knew that they had lost the battle, but they were unwilling to give up. They wanted to launch a suicidal attack and perish together with their enemies. Use your spiritual chi to protect yourself. Try to attack from afar. Kagura Sato also reminded the elite. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After hearing the 2's reminder, the elites activated their spiritual chi and set up a spiritual chi barrier in front of them. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, and white. In the blink of an eye, all kinds of spiritual chi barriers appeared in front of the elites. In the sky, 9 different colors appeared at the same time. It was a beautiful sight. The moment the spiritual chi barrier was set up, the skulls arrived like a rainstorm. Boom, 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 boom. The tens of thousands of skulls slammed into the spiritual chi barrier set up by the elites and made a loud noise. Buzz, boom. The moment the skulls hit the spiritual chi barrier, the creepy skulls first emitted dozens of bright black lights from their eyes, ears, and noses, and then exploded with a loud bang. They condensed their spiritual chi and then attacked by self-detonation. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of explosions was dense and continuous. the skulls surged up crazily, one after another. For a moment, the bones were broken, and the black lights were splashing everywhere. The suicidal attack of the tens of thousands of skulls forced the elites to retreat. Crack, crack, under the continuous bombardment of the countless skulls, fine cracks began to appear on the various spirit chi light barriers in front of the experts. The elites activated their spiritual chi and kept injecting it into the spiritual chi barrier. However, there were too many skulls and they were all suicidal attacks. Even if they activated their spiritual chi, the cracks on the spiritual chi barrier were getting bigger and bigger. Just as the elites were gradually unable to hold on, a huge bright blood-red light beam shot down from the sky. The light beam was 30 feet thick, and the spiritual chi roared. What was even more incredible was that this blood-red light beam was not cylindrical, but in the shape of a swastika. Whoosh! The blood-red light beam with the swastika written upside down swept across the countless skulls. Boom! 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 Wherever the swastika light beam passed, countless skulls exploded and turned into white bone dust. It was Yi Fan. The elites behind the spiritual chi barrier raised their heads in unison. High up in the sky, Yi Fan was whistling casually while shooting out a huge blood-red light beam from the swastika written upside down between his eyebrows. He slowly turned his head and used the swastika light beam to sweep across the countless skulls below. The blood-red light beam of the swastika light beam lit up the entire sky. Yi Fan only swept the light beam back and forth a few times, and the tens of thousands of skulls and countless ghosts below instantly vanished into thin air. Not a single one was left behind. The elites had to use all their strength to barely block this suicidal attack, but Yi Fan only used a few seconds to completely destroy it. Boom! Just as the elites were dumbfounded, the sound of huge waves could be heard from the sea below. The elites immediately lowered their heads and focused their eyes to look down. The moment they saw it, all their faces changed. 4 huge netherworld skeleton ships were gradually leaving the sea and rising up slowly. Funakoshi Shinichi, who was wearing a navy blue robe, Yamada Shingo, who was wearing a white robe, Onijiro, who was wearing a black robe, and Chi Yao, who was wearing a disdainful smile. The 4 of them each held a netherworld skeleton ship in their hands and flew straight up into the sky. The grandeur of the battle array shocked all the experts present on the spot. Whoosh! After the 4 of them rushed out of the sea, they threw the ships with all their strength. Whoosh! The 4 netherworld skeleton ships suddenly accelerated and rose up rapidly. Boom! High up in the sky, Chinkong Iha activated a flame that was dozens of feet high. The flame was as bright as frost and snow, and its aura was like a rainbow. Bang! Within the flame, Chinkong Iha put his palms together. Splash! As Chinkong Iha put his palms together, countless huge white birds flew out from the flame that was as big as a mountain. The birds were about 3 feet long, and their wings were full of white radiance. The number of birds could reach up to tens of thousands. What was inconceivable was that the wings of every white light bird were burning with raging flames. He had merged his spiritual energy and flames into one, and then released them with the technique of 1,000 birds. Chi Yao, who was below, was shocked. Whoosh! After the tens of thousands of birds rushed out of Chinkong Iha's flame, they immediately connected with each other and circled around Chinkong Iha at high speed. Chinkong Iha, who was still with his palms together, looked calm and composed. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the 4 netherworld ghost ships had reached the highest point, and they were less than 100 feet away from Chinkong Iha. 1,000 birds returned to their nests, 10,000 flames burned the heavens. Chinkong Iha narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Whoosh! Whoosh! Whoosh!" As soon as Chinkong Iha finished speaking, the tens of thousands of birds around him suddenly changed their direction and flew downwards. White radiance shone brightly as the flames connected. Whoosh! The blazing light birds were extremely fast, and they covered the distance of 100 feet in the blink of an eye. Boom, 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 boom. Following countless earth-shattering explosions, the tens of thousands of blazing light birds completely engulfed the 4 netherworld ghost ships. Boom! The white spiritual energy on the bodies of the blazing light birds smashed the netherworld ghost ships into pieces. Whoosh! The flames on the wings of the blazing light birds burned the broken bones into ashes. When other experts used 2 moves to solve the problem, Chinkong Iha only used 1 move. At this moment, all 7 netherworld ghost ships were destroyed. The undying curse that the spirits were so proud of was broken. Good. Ha ha. Good. On the deck of Shipwuji, Matsumoto Takeyoshi patted the railing as he cheered loudly. Before the Shipwuji could even reach the battlefield, the 7 netherworld ghost ships had already been reduced to ashes, disappearing into nothingness. At this moment, Matsumoto Takeyoshi was in a good mood. The netherworld ghost ships that had wreaked havoc for thousands of years were destroyed just like that. Moreover, they were destroyed by his team. Of course, he was happy. 7 ships. Yi Fan laughed eerily. At this moment, the hundreds of thousand-year-old spirits that were tied to the scarlet chains were all ashen. The netherworld ghost ships were destroyed, the Een soldiers were destroyed, and their undying bodies were gone. They, who had always been invincible, were now like fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. You won't be able to recover this time, right? Yi Fan smiled as he narrowed his blood-red eyes. After which, he suddenly pulled the blood-red chain in his hand. Whoosh! Before the spirits could beg for mercy, the scarlet chains that were wrapped around their bodies tightened around them. Whoosh! Chapter 820. Whoosh! As the 100,000-year-old ghost spirits, primordial spirits, were destroyed, Zhang Gong and Wide appeared beside Yi Fan. Although the 2 of them had been absorbed by the ghost spirit that killed Akatsuki, they were born from the Een Chi of heaven and earth. Thus, even if the ghost spirit had 1,000-year-old cultivation, it would not be able to absorb all the Een Chi in the 2 ghosts' bodies in a short time. Once the ghost spirit's primordial spirits were destroyed, the 2 ghosts naturally left its body. Say, sir, when the white-robed Zhang Gong saw the red-haired, red-robed, and black-eyed Yi Fan, he cautiously asked. Weida, who was dressed in a green robe, was also dumbstruck at this moment. Ever since the 2 ghosts had followed Yi Fan, they had never seen Yi Fan in his demon lord form. But even so, the 2 ghosts still recognized Yi Fan. Although Yi Fan had transformed into his demon lord form, his figure and face had not changed. Moreover, the 8-treasure jade silk robe on his body had become blood-red in color, but it still exuded the same aura of treasures as before. Yi Fan's red lips curled as he slowly nodded. Sir, we did not protect Miss Yu well enough. We have failed, sir. Please punish us. As Zhang Gong spoke, he lowered his head and knelt in the air. Please punish us. Wide also knelt. Yi Fan slowly turned around. His blood-red hair and blood-red robe fluttered in the wind. The opponent this time is an undying 1,000-year-old ghost spirit. It is only natural that you are not its match. Get up, Yi Fan said in a mixed male and female voice. The 2 ghosts looked at each other and silently got up. There is nothing for you to do here. Go back, Yi Fan said to the 2 ghosts. Yes, sir. The 2 ghosts muttered unhappily. They turned into 2 streaks of black light and flew into the Yin-Yang ghost seal in Yi Fan's arms. Cha! Cha! Screech, seeing that the Netherworld ghost swarm and the 7 Netherworld ghost ships had all been destroyed, the experts sheathed their swords and executed their movement techniques, flying toward the Wuji that was a few dozen li away. Chinkong Iha and Shingo Yamada also turned into rays of light and flew back to the warship to report on their mission. Shua. Chi Yao, dressed in a black robe, appeared in front of Yi Fan. The war is over. Brother Yi, why are you still standing here? Chi Yao said to Yi Fan. Let's go back and celebrate. You go back first. I still have something to do, Yi Fan said to Qi Yao expressionlessly. Qi Yao was stunned at first, then smiled. Then you go ahead and do what you need to do. I'll wait for you on the ship. Shwa. As Qi Yao spoke, she turned into black smoke and disappeared. After Qi Yao left, Yi Fan slowly raised his head and looked at the sky with his blood-red eyes. After a long time, Yi Fan smiled. Shwa. Yi Fan's figure disappeared on the spot. Then, he appeared in front of Sky Moni and the demon Venerable. Although Tenmoni and the Demon Lord had already concealed their auras and spiritual power and used invisibility techniques, they were still discovered by Yi Fan. Big brother. Yi Fan smiled at Tenmoni. In fact, Yi Fan already knew when Tenmoni and the Demon Lord appeared. However, he was busy dealing with the Netherworld ghost swarm and there were many experts present, so he did not go up to greet them. Brother Yu. Tenmoni smiled at Yi Fan. Tenmoni and the Demon Lord were not surprised that Yi Fan was able to discover them. After all, Yi Fan was now in his 100% demonic monarch body and his strength was at its peak. It was normal for him to see through their little tricks. Big brother, are you just passing by or are you here to see me? Yi Fan smiled and asked Tenmoni. If I said I was passing by, would you believe me? Tenmoni smiled and asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan smiled and shook his head. With Tenmoni's status, how could he so easily descend into the human world? Yi Fan did not even need to guess. Tenmoni must have appeared here specifically to see him. As for the reason, he knew very well. He had completely released his heavenly demon power and transformed into his 100% demonic monarch body. With Tenmoni's cultivation, how could he not have detected it in advance? I sensed that you had pushed your heavenly demon power to the limit in the demon palace. I was worried, so I came to see you. Tenmoni smiled at Yi Fan. Yi Fan smiled and nodded lightly. This is... Yi Fan turned his head and looked at the demon lord with his blood-red eyes and black pupils. This person was surrounded by auspicious air and auspicious light. His cultivation was even more domineering. Even Yi Fan felt that it was inconceivable. Looking at this person's attire and aura, as well as his dignified aura that was equal to Tenmoni's, Yi Fan was not far from the mark. If he guessed correctly, this person was either a demon lord or a ghost lord. I almost forgot to introduce you. Tenmoni smiled and said to Yi Fan, this is the new master of the demon realm, the demon lord. Brother Demon, this is the new demonic monarch that I told you about just now, Eldritch Yi Bufan. Both of you are new, so you should get to know each other. Greetings, Demon Lord. Yi Fan nodded and said to the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord was the supreme master of the demon realm. His status was equal to Tenmoni's. As the monarch of the demon realm, he naturally could not be rude. I've often heard that Mr. Eldritch is both good and evil. He is unruly and unruly. Everything he does is based on his own likes and dislikes. Seeing you today, you really live up to your reputation and leave a deep impression. The Demon Lord in a snow-white robe smiled and said to Yi Fan, Demon Lord, you flatter me. Yi Fan smiled and said, Brother Demon, you're really lucky to have such a rare talent. It's really enviable. The Demon Lord turned his head and smiled at Tenmoni. If I could have someone half as capable as Mr. Eldritch to assist me, I would be satisfied. From the moment Yi Fan appeared until now, the Demon Lord kept calling Yi Fan Mr. Eldritch and Mr. Eldritch. He never treated Yi Fan as someone who was inferior to him. Tenmoni saw this and smiled. It was obvious that the demon Venerate was fond of Yi Fan. Demon Lord, you're too kind. Yi Fan smiled and said to the Demon Lord, I'm no longer Eldritch. My devil spirit ability was obtained from Big Brother's demon realm. It's all thanks to Big Brother that I have today. Sigh, Brother Demon, I'm really starting to envy you. The Demon Lord looked at Tenmoni and said with a smile, Brother Yu, now that you've eliminated the nether ghosts, you should disperse your demon monarch form. Tian Moni returned to the topic at hand. This is the human realm, where humans, gods, demons, ghosts, and crooks are mixed in. Don't cause any trouble. Tenmoni's goal was very simple. He wanted to persuade Yi Fan to disperse his Devil King form and see if his mind had been controlled by the devil spirit. After hearing Tenmoni's words, Yi Fan suddenly narrowed his eyes. He looked at Tenmoni with his blood-red and black pupils. His gaze was deep. Tenmoni smiled and also looked at Yi Fan with his pair of starry eyes. The demon lord stood to the side and quietly observed the situation. The three people who were chatting and laughing just now were now silent. The atmosphere instantly became heavy. Whoosh, the sea breeze blew and the robes of the three powerhouses fluttered loudly. After a long time, Yi Fan smiled. "All right, I'll listen to Big Brother." Yi Fan broke the silence with a smile. Whoosh, just as Yi Fan finished speaking, the blood-red flames around Yi Fan instantly dispersed like the tide. As the mountain-like blood-red flames gradually faded away, Yi Fan's blood-dyed red hair turned into strands of silver hair. His blood-red eyes turned into clear, starry eyes. The 8 treasures jadeite embroidered robe on his body turned from blood-red to an ink-black color once again. The swastika character in the center of his brows also started to fade away and disappear. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan had dispersed his Devil King form and returned to his human form. Seeing that Yi Fan obeyed him and withdrew his heavenly demon power, the stone in Tianmoni's heart fell to the ground. If Yi Fan really refused to disperse his Devil King form, he would have to do it himself. The Demon Lord also heaved a sigh of relief. One was the Devil King and the other was the Devil King. If the two of them were to fight in the human world, the Demon Lord did not dare to think further. Smack! Tenmoni pressed his hand on Yi Fan's shoulder. "Brother, you trust Big Brother. Big Brother is doing this for your own good," Tenmoni said to Yi Fan seriously. "Big Brother, I understand." Yi Fan, who had returned to his human form, nodded and said to Tenmoni, "You do what you need to do. We're leaving." As Tenmoni spoke, he shook Yi Fan's shoulder forcefully. Then, he turned around and disappeared with a whoosh. "Mr. Eldritch, take care," the Demon Lord said and disappeared. Yi Fan stood alone in the void and was silent for a long time. What is he doing? On the sea below, Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who was standing on the deck of the battleship, raised his head and looked at Yi Fan, who was floating in the air motionlessly. He frowned and asked Shingo Yamada, who was next to him. Shingo Yamada, who was in white, shook his head slowly. In their eyes, they could only see Yi Fan standing alone in the void and his shoulders shaking. As for the Devil Lord Tenmoni and the Demon Lord, they could not see them at all. Whoosh! Yi Fan, who was in midair, disappeared instantly and reappeared on the deck in an instant. "Ha ha! Buffon-kun, you and Mr. Onamo have contributed greatly to the annihilation of the Nether Spirit." Matsumoto Takeyoshi laughed loudly when he saw Yi Fan. "Where's Hongji?" Yi Fan asked Matsumoto Takeyoshi directly. "Miss Yu is in the medical cabin now. I've arranged for someone to take care of her." Whoosh! Before Matsumoto Takeyoshi could finish his sentence, Yi Fan disappeared instantly. Whoosh! In an instant, Yi Fan appeared in the medical cabin out of thin air. Yi Fan's sudden appearance shocked the few female ninjas in the medical cabin. "Greetings, Mr. Yi." The few female ninjas were shocked at first but immediately bowed to Yi Fan. "All of you can leave first," Yi Fan said to the few of them. "Yes." The few female ninjas bowed and left. Yi Fan slowly walked to the bed and looked at Akatsuki, who was lying on it quietly. At that moment, Akatsuki's face was covered by a veil as if she was asleep. Buzz! Yi Fan activated the heavenly demon power and the swastika appeared in between his eyebrows again. He slowly raised his right hand and placed it in between his eyebrows. Whoosh! A 3-inch man made of light slowly came out from the swastika on Yi Fan's eyebrows and landed on his palm. Yi Fan slowly lowered his palm and gently placed the 3-inch man made of light on Akatsuki's eyebrows. Whoosh! Chapter 8:21. As soon as the primordial spirit entered her body, Akatsuki began to react. Her slender fingers first moved slightly, then her chest slightly rose and fell as she breathed. Yi Fan withdrew his palm, withdrew the devil spirit, slowly turned around and prepared to leave. Yi Fan had just taken 2 steps when Akatsuki's weak voice came from behind him. Yi Fan, be careful. Akatsuki, who was lying on the bed, closed her beautiful eyes and said nonsense. Yi Fan stopped and frowned slightly. He slowly turned around and looked at Akatsuki. Akatsuki had just returned her primordial spirit, so her 3 souls were not at peace and her 7 spirits were not stable. At this time, she was still in a nightmare. After thinking for a moment, Yi Fan returned to Akatsuki's side, stretched out his sword finger, and gently tapped Akatsuki's forehead. Buzz, the red light on Yi Fan's finger reappeared. Swish, several red ripples slowly spread from Akatsuki's forehead and gradually spread to her whole body. Yi Fan used his spiritual power to calm Akatsuki's nerves and soul. Under the urging of his spiritual power, Akatsuki's mood gradually stabilized. She gently opened her beautiful eyes. In the hazy sight, Yi Fan's outline gradually became clear. Seeing Akatsuki open her eyes, Yi Fan turned around and prepared to leave. When Yi Fan walked to the door of the cabin, Akatsuki struggled to sit up on the bed and weakly shouted to Yi Fan. Yi Fan stopped in his tracks and stood still. It's you who saved me?" The pale Akatsuki weakly asked Yi Fan. "Your primordial spirit has just returned to your body and you just lost a lot of blood, so your body is very weak. It's not good for you to talk too much. Rest well," Yi Fan said coldly, slid open the cabin door and stepped out. Crash! The cabin door was heavily closed. Akatsuki laid her head heavily on the soft cotton pillow, tears silently falling from her eyes. After Yi Fan came out of the medical cabin, he happened to see 2 ninjas not far away. In the hands of these 2 ninjas, respectively, were holding a red scabbard and 2 broken pieces of a battle sword. The weapons in their hands were none other than Akatsuki's red princess battle sword that was cut off by the demon spirit. "Greetings to Mr. Yi." After seeing Yi Fan, the 2 ninjas immediately stopped and bowed to Yi Fan in unison. At this time, in the eyes of the ninjas, Yi Fan was not only a godlike existence, but also their savior. If it weren't for this person, they would have been taken away by the ghosts of the netherworld and become one of the ghosts. In the past, they were afraid of Yi Fan, a fear that came from the bottom of their hearts. Now, they were both afraid and respectful of him. "What are you holding in your hands?" Yi Fan asked the 2 ninjas. Replying to Mr. Yi, "This is Miss Akatsuki's red princess battle sword," one of the ninjas said respectfully to Yi Fan. "We found it when we were cleaning up the battlefield. Mr. Matsumoto ordered us to repair it and restore it to its original state, then return it to Miss Akatsuki." "Give it to me, I'll repair it for her," Yi Fan said to the 2 ninjas. The 2 ninjas looked troubled. Matsumoto Takeyoshi's order was for the 2 of them to repair the battle sword. He didn't say that they were going to give it to Yi Fan. "If you're troubled, report to Matsumoto Takeyoshi and tell him that I said so," Yi Fan said calmly. Okay." After looking at each other, one of the ninjas replied to Yi Fan, "Mr. Akatsuki, you can take Miss Akatsuki's sword. We'll report to our master when the time comes." As the ninja spoke, he handed the broken swords in their hands to Yi Fan with both hands. Yi Fan took it and flew back to the boat. At this time, the boat had already separated from the battleship and was quietly floating on the sea dozens of feet behind the battleship. When Yi Fan entered the cabin, the dancer Kono Oda was wiping the floor on the first floor. "Mr. Yi is back." Seeing Yi Fan come back, Kono Oda, who was dressed in white, immediately lowered her head and said to Yi Fan, She didn't bow to Yi Fan. The reason was very simple. Yi Fan told her not to be so polite to him in the future. Only then would their relationship seem to be extraordinary. Yi Fan replied. I have something to do upstairs. If there's nothing important, don't disturb me. Yi Fan said and slowly walked upstairs. Yes, Kono Oda replied. After Yi Fan went upstairs, he went directly to the wooden table and put the red princess sword that was cut in two on the table. Akatsuki disobeyed orders to help him. In other words, this battle sword was cut in two because of him. Whether it was for public or private reasons, he should restore this sword. Yi Fan reached out and picked up the broken sword and carefully examined the fracture. It must be known that repairing a weapon wasn't as simple as piecing the broken sword back together. Ordinary weapons were fine as they could be directly smelted and pieced together. After all, the material was ordinary steel and pure iron. But for high-quality weapons, repairing them was not so simple. Many high-quality weapons, once broken, were no longer useful. The reason was very simple. These high-quality weapons simply couldn't reach the strength and toughness they had before. Even if they were barely pieced together, the power was not as strong as before and it was easy to break again. Because of this, when most experts encountered a situation where their weapon was broken, they would choose a new weapon instead of repairing it. Carrying a weapon was a key factor in fighting on the battlefield. No one would joke around with their own life. Yi Fan furrowed his brows when he saw the cut. The Red Lady saber was indeed a good saber. However, from the materials used to forge it, it was impossible to completely repair it. This sword was made of one piece and the craftsmanship was extremely complicated. Even if the swordsmith who made this sword personally repaired it, it would be difficult to restore it to its original state. Yi Fan was in a dilemma. He put the broken sword back on the wooden table and fell into deep thought. Akatsuki would definitely return to Japan in the future. If he didn't have a suitable weapon by his side, he would definitely be worried. But now that the Red Princess sword was broken and difficult to repair, what should he do? Unless he gave her a new battle sword. Wait a minute, a new battle sword? Yi Fan's mind flashed. Didn't he recently get a new treasure sword? And it was a woman's battle sword. Thinking of this, Yi Fan's mind moved. Buzz, with a flash of golden light, a golden battle sword appeared in the void in front of Yi Fan. This sword was 4 feet long and was gilded with gold, shining with golden light. The hilt of the saber was entwined with golden threads, and a brilliant amber bead was inlaid on it. The golden color was dazzling and it was eye-catching. On the gilded saber scabbard, there was a lifelike golden phoenix in the clouds carved on it. The design was gorgeous and exquisite. This sword was none other than the treasure sword that the scorpion spirit had given him, the Phoenix Wing Tang sword, which the head of the Yi family had personally forged for a woman of the Tang dynasty's royal family. Yi Fan reached out and held the Phoenix Wing sword in front of his eyes. To put it bluntly, even Yi Fan, who already had the Ice Dragon Li Hua dual swords and the Bloodthirsty Waning Moon dual swords, could not bear to part with this Phoenix Wing sword. Even though this was a woman's sword. In terms of material, craftsmanship, combat power, and nobility, this Phoenix Wing sword was far superior to the Red Princess sword. This sword was the most suitable as Akatsuki's new weapon. However, Akatsuki liked the color red. This golden battle sword might be a little eye-catching to her. Thinking of this, Yi Fan had an idea in his mind. Oda! Yi Fan called out to Oda Kono, who was downstairs. Crash! A moment later, the wooden door slid open, and Oda Kono, dressed in white, appeared at the door. Sir, you called for me. Oda Kono said to Yi Fan. Go to Matsumoto Takayoshi's place and get me some high-quality rubies. Tell him that I need them. Yi Fan said to Oda Kono. Oda Kono nodded in response, then turned and left. After a while, Oda Kono returned with a palm-sized brocade pouch in her hand. Sir, the rubies you wanted. Oda Kono came to Yi Fan and knelt in front of Yi Fan. She presented the brocade pouch with both hands. Yi Fan reached out and took the pouch. He opened it and poured out the contents onto his palm. At this moment, there were 5 or 6 blood-red rubies in his palm. Each of these rubies was the size of a pigeon's egg. They were pure, flawless, and incomparably translucent. In addition to the 5 or 6 rubies in his hand, there were 7 or 8 other rubies in the pouch. If these rubies were put on the market, they would be worth at least 10,000 taels of silver. Matsumoto Takeyoshi is really generous, Yi Fan thought to himself. Crash, while he was thinking, he poured out all the rubies in the brocade pouch onto the table. What beautiful rubies! Oda Kono exclaimed as she looked at the dazzling rubies on the table. Although she was a ninja, she was still a woman. Women were naturally interested in jewelry. Yi Fan smiled after hearing this. He reached out and picked up the largest ruby on the table and handed it to Oda Kono. For you, Yi Fan said with a smile. For me. Oda Kono's eyes widened in disbelief. Don't you like it? I'll give you one. Yi Fan smiled at Oda Kono. No, sir misunderstood. I was just saying. I didn't want sir to give it to me. Oda Kono hurriedly waved her hand and hurriedly said to Yi Fan. I don't need so many. The rest are just sitting there. Since you like it, take it. Yi Fan said as he stuffed the rubies into Oda Kono's hands. If others knew that the rubies in Oda Kono's hands were given by him, they would be more convinced of their relationship. This. Oda Kono's face turned red. She was stunned and didn't know what to say. Looking at Oda Kono's bewildered appearance, Yi Fan couldn't help but smile. He didn't expect that a well-trained female ninja would also have a time when she blushed. Yi Fan thought as he grabbed the rubies on the table and stuffed them back into the pouch. Then, he held the pouch with one hand and gently squeezed. Crack, 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 with a crisp sound, the rubies in the pouch were instantly crushed by Yi Fan. Sir, what are you? Yi Fan's actions left Oda Kono dumbfounded. Yi Fan had actually crushed all of these rare top-grade rubies. No wonder he gave her the largest ruby. Chapter 822. Yi Fan only stopped when all the top-grade rubies in the brocade pouch had been crushed into powder. He put down the brocade pouch, then activated the ice core in his body and waved it at the wooden table in front of him. Buzz, a bright white light flashed, and a long and narrow icebox appeared on the wooden table. The icebox was 4 feet long and 3 inches wide. It was sparkling and translucent, and it was surrounded by a cold aura. Yi Fan took the golden phoenix wing saber and placed it into the icebox. The size of the icebox matched the size of the phoenix wing saber perfectly. After the saber was placed inside, it fit perfectly. After putting the saber into the icebox, Yi Fan took out the brocade pouch and took out a small handful of powdered gemstone. He carefully sprinkled it on the phoenix wing saber in the icebox. In just a short while, the phoenix wing saber's hilt and scabbard were covered with the blood-red rubies. After spreading the rubies evenly, Yi Fan gently placed his palm 3 inches above the phoenix wing saber and activated the fire snake's dragon pearl in his body. Buzz, dozens of hot red lights shot out from Yi Fan's palm and shot directly at the phoenix wing saber in the icebox. Hua, under the scorching heat of the fire serpent dragon orb, the ruby powder that covered the phoenix wing saber began to melt. Gradually, the phoenix wing saber's hilt and scabbard were covered. In the blink of an eye, the golden pattern on the phoenix wing saber turned into a bright blood-red color. The golden phoenix in the clouds carved on the scabbard turned into a lifelike blood phoenix. As Yi Fan released the heat, he began to activate his spiritual energy and slowly raised his palm. Buzz, as Yi Fan raised his palm, the phoenix wing saber in the icebox began to float and turn slowly. Yi Fan activated his spiritual energy and carefully controlled the melted gemstone lava on the phoenix wing saber. Whoosh! The glowing red gemstone lava seemed to have a mind of its own as it quickly swam on the other side of the phoenix wing saber. In the blink of an eye, the entire saber was covered by the gemstone lava. The phoenix wing saber that was shining with a golden light a moment ago had turned into a bright blood-red color. Seeing that he had succeeded, Yi Fan began to withdraw his spiritual energy. The blood-red phoenix wing saber slowly fell back into the icebox. Whoosh! The cold air released from the icebox quickly cooled down the blazing gemstone lava on the phoenix wing saber, restoring the original hardness of the rubies. Yi Fan took the phoenix wing saber out of the icebox and examined it. At this time, the phoenix wing saber was covered in gems. It was as red as blood, and the red light was dazzling. Even the golden amber light bead embedded at the top of the scabbard was completely wrapped by the ruby, and the blood was resplendent. Yi Fan smiled and nodded his head in satisfaction as he looked at the phoenix wing saber in his hand. With this saber, Akatsuki's weapon problem could be said to have been perfectly solved. With the spiritual energy cultivation that he had imparted to Akatsuki, the ultimate saber technique Autumn Wind 3 consecutive slashes, and the phoenix wing saber, Akatsuki's combat strength was not to be underestimated. Now, Akatsuki's only shortcoming should be her movement technique. Thinking of this, Yi Fan put down the phoenix wing saber and put away the icebox. Then, he took out a piece of rice paper and laid it out on the wooden table. He picked up the brush, dipped it in ink, and began to write on the paper. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Yi Fan put down the brush, picked up the rice paper filled with tiny characters, and dried the ink on it. He folded the rice paper and placed it in an envelope. Then, he wrapped the envelope around the phoenix wing saber. Then, he found a piece of green cloth and wrapped the phoenix wing saber and the letter tightly. Oda! After doing all this, Yi Fan called out. After a moment, the door opened. Dressed in white, Oda Kono appeared at the door. Sir, you called for me. Oda Kono said to Yi Fan. At this moment, her face was still flushed with excitement. After all, this was the first time in her life that someone had given her such a precious ruby. Moreover, the person who gave it to her was eldritch, a godlike existence. Yi Fan placed the phoenix wing saber on the table and calmly said to Oda Kono, "Now help me hand this to Miss Oda." Yes. Oda Kono said as she slowly walked in front of Yi Fan and picked up the package. The package was heavy in her hand. It weighed about 20 kilograms. As a ninja, Oda Kono didn't even need to guess. It was definitely the golden saber that she saw when she gave the ruby to Yi Fan. When you come back, prepare some food and wine for me. Yi Fan said to Oda Kono. Yes. Oda Kono said as she turned around and left. At this moment, Akatsuki was quietly lying on the bed in her cabin. She stared blankly at the ceiling above her head, lost in thought. When she was in the medical cabin, she already knew what happened from the ninja beside her. After she was stabbed, Yi Fan went berserk and his demonic nature erupted. First, he slapped Kiyoshi Yamamoto, who insulted her and sent him flying. Then, he transformed into his demon king form and tortured the hell spirits. If it wasn't for Yi Fan, she might have already become one of the hell spirits. Originally, she was going to help Yi Fan, but in the end, she became the one who was saved. Perhaps it was really like what Yi Fan said before. Apart from being a burden to him, she couldn't do anything else. But if that was really the case, why would Yi Fan save her? Why would he teach Kiyoshi Yamamoto a lesson and say that he wasn't worthy of being her husband? Could it be that he did all those things on purpose for her to see? Does he still care about her in his heart? But the scene of him hugging that coquettish dancer was something she saw with her own eyes. How could she explain that? Akatsuki tossed and turned, her heart was in a mess. She found that she couldn't understand Yi Fan at all. Knock knock knock. Just when she was thinking and feeling annoyed, there was a knock on the door. Who is it? Akatsuki asked impatiently. Miss Mochizuki, please open the door. Oda Kono's voice came from outside the door. As soon as Oda Kono's voice fell, Akatsuki sat up from the bed. She couldn't be more familiar with this voice. Speak of the devil. The person outside the door was none other than the coquettish dancer that Yi Fan carried into the cabin to fool around in front of everyone. Why is she looking for me? Akatsuki thought. Could it be that she's here to show off her affection? To show off her prowess? Impossible. This dancer was just an ordinary female ninja under Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Even if she had 10 times the courage, she wouldn't dare to show off in front of me. To Yi Fan, this person was just a tool to satisfy his lust. If she wasn't here to show off, then what was she here for? Akatsuki was puzzled. Crash. With complicated and confused feelings, Akatsuki got off the bed and slid the door open. Outside the cabin door, the beautiful and voluptuous Oda Kono stood there respectfully. She was wearing a white dress and had a face full of respect. In her hands was a long package made of green cloth. Miss Mochizuki. Oda Kono bowed to Akatsuki and greeted her politely. Why are you looking for me? Akatsuki looked at Oda Kono with hostility and asked coldly. Mr. Yi asked me to give this package to you. Oda Kono handed the package to Akatsuki with both hands and lowered her head as she spoke in a low voice. In order to help Yi Fan, Akatsuki fought without orders. Even an idiot could see what was going on. She was carried away by Yi Fan in front of everyone, so of course Akatsuki was hostile towards her. In the eyes of outsiders, she was already Yi Fan's woman. For me? Akatsuki immediately frowned and asked Oda Kono, what is it? I don't know. Oda Kono replied in a low voice. You don't know? Akatsuki frowned and asked, don't you live with him? How could you not know? I really don't know. Oda Kono's face turned red, and her voice became smaller and smaller. Forget it, I'll see for myself. Akatsuki took the package with one hand. After the package was wrapped, Akatsuki sensed the contents of the package. There was a weapon inside, and judging from the domineering aura coming from it, this weapon was definitely not ordinary. There was one thing that Akatsuki was sure of, and that was that this weapon was definitely not her Red Princess Warblade. Although the Red Princess Warblade was a rare top-grade weapon, it definitely wouldn't have such a domineering aura. Apart from asking you to deliver this package to me, what else did he say? Akatsuki asked Oda Kono. No, nothing else. Oda Kono replied. I understand. You can go back now. Akatsuki said to Oda Kono. Yes. Oda Kono felt relieved and turned to leave. Wait a moment. Akatsuki called out from behind. Miss Tsukasa, is there anything else? Oda Kono turned around and asked politely. What's your name? Akatsuki asked. I'm called Oda Kono. Oda Kono bowed and replied. Oda Kono? That's a nice name. Akatsuki nodded. Oda Kono lowered her head. There's nothing else for you to do. You can go back now. Akatsuki said to Oda Kono and returned to the cabin. Oda Kono pursed her lips, turned around, and used her movement skill to rush back to the boat. After returning to the cabin, Akatsuki directly opened the package in her hand. Whoosh, the moment the package was opened, several dazzling red lights shot out from within, dazzling to the eyes. At the same time, a domineering aura instantly filled the cabin. When she saw the dazzling red sword in her hands, Akatsuki was instantly stunned. The exquisite workmanship of this sword, and the noble design, could be said to be unprecedented. In all her life, Akatsuki had never seen such a magnificent weapon. Chapter 8:23. Clang. Less than an inch after the battle saber was unsheathed, countless rays of dazzling white light shot out from the saber. When the entire battle saber was unsheathed, the entire berth cabin was instantly illuminated. As the battle saber was unsheathed, an awe-inspiring aura filled the entire cabin. What a powerful saber aura! What an awe-inspiring aura! Akatsuki, who was holding onto the battle saber, was shocked. She held the battle saber horizontally in front of her and carefully sized it up. This saber was 4 feet long and had an awe-inspiring saber aura. The body of the saber was as dazzling as snow and the aura it emitted was domineering and awe-inspiring. At the opening of the battle saber, 2 ancient seal words entered her eyes. Phoenix Wing. Akatsuki muttered to herself. So this was the Yi clan's divine weapon that Yi Fan had obtained from the scorpion spirit, the Phoenix Wing Saber. What an excellent Phoenix Wing Saber! It was indeed a divine weapon that the head of the Yi clan had personally forged for the Tang dynasty's royal family. The combat power of this saber was far from what the Red Princess battle saber could compare to. Akatsuki thought to herself as she sheathed the Phoenix Wing Saber. She held the glowing red Phoenix Wing Saber tightly with both hands as she frowned and bit her lip. Why would Yi Fan give such a precious divine weapon to her? Didn't he treat her coldly? Was it because her Red Princess Saber was destroyed? Or was he worried about her and was afraid that her safety would not be guaranteed? Akatsuki did not know. Unintentionally, Akatsuki's gaze landed on a green cloth package on the table. A corner of a letter was revealed within the green cloth. Akatsuki was shocked. She immediately placed the Phoenix Wing Saber aside and pulled out the letter from the green cloth. To Red Princess only. There were 4 words written on the envelope. It was a letter that Yi Fan had written to her. Akatsuki hurriedly opened the envelope and took out the letter. After she unfolded the rice paper, Akatsuki was stunned. On the rice paper, there were many elegant and vigorous small regular script characters written on it. On the rightmost side of the 1,000 words were 8 words. Cloud writing technique, fog writing technique. It was the cloud writing technique. Akatsuki was shocked. Yi Fan had imparted this technique to him. In an instant, 2 streams of tears flowed from Akatsuki's eyes. Big drops of tears fell onto the rice paper in her hand and rippled in an instant. Phoenix Wing Saber, Cloud Riding Technique. Soaring away on the clouds, the phoenix wings soared high. Yi Fan was saying his final goodbyes to her. Thinking of this, Akatsuki was heartbroken, the pain seeping into her bones. Filled with grief, she threw herself onto the bed and began to bawl. As for Akatsuki's cries, Yi Fan, who was in the cabin of the boat, heard them clearly. At this time, he was sitting on a praying mat, drinking cup after cup of wine to drown his sorrows. On the wooden table in front of him, there were 8 dishes of 4 meat and 4 vegetable dishes. Dressed in white, Oda Ono was kneeling beside Yi Fan, holding a jug of wine. Smack! Yi Fan placed the empty cup on the wooden table. Pour the wine. Yi Fan said expressionlessly to Oda Ono. Sir, you've already drunk 3 jugs of wine. Oda Ono whispered to Yi Fan. Pour the wine. Yi Fan interrupted Oda Ono's words and said impatiently with a frown. Oda Ono pursed her lips and continued to pour wine for Yi Fan. Yi Fan raised the wine cup, tilted his head back, and downed it in one gulp. Akatsuki's heart-wrenching cries were unbearable to him, as if a knife was cutting into his heart. However, he didn't choose to retract his hearing or turn a deaf ear. Instead, he forced himself to listen. He had to force himself to get through this ordeal. As long as he could get through this ordeal, his heart wouldn't be in so much pain anymore. He drank 1 glass of liquor after another, and did not stop. Although he was expressionless on the surface, the pain in his heart was no less than Akatsuki's. Yi Fan drank a total of 5 jugs of wine. Just as he was about to drink the 6th jug, Akatsuki's cries stopped. Yi Fan's wine cup stopped in front of his mouth. Whoosh! Outside the boat there was the sound of movement. Yi Fan frowned and raised his eyebrows. It was Akatsuki. She was rushing here. Thinking of this, Yi Fan put down his wine glass and pulled Oda Ono, who was kneeling beside him, into his arms. Before Oda Ono could understand what was going on, she had already fallen into Yi Fan's arms. Cooperate with me. Yi Fan whispered to Oda Ono in his arms as he unbuttoned his robe, revealing his fair and firm chest. After taking off his robes, Yi Fan placed his hand on Oda Noda's shoulder. With a swoosh, he removed the robes covering her shoulders, revealing her alluring snow-white shoulders. Oda Ono stared at Yi Fan with a pair of big, clear eyes. Her face was completely red and her heart was beating wildly. Cooperate? Cooperate with what? He couldn't be Crash. Just as Oda Ono was still trying to figure out what was going on, the cabin door suddenly opened from the outside. Akatsuki, dressed in red, rushed in from outside. At this time, her beautiful eyes were like peaches from crying, and the tears at the corners of her eyes hadn't dried. She didn't want to cry anymore. She wanted to ask Yi Fan personally if he had her in his heart. The moment Akatsuki rushed in, Yi Fan put on a smile on his face. Yi Fan. After entering the cabin, Akatsuki said angrily, Miss Uehara, didn't anyone tell you that you have to knock before entering someone's cabin? Yi Fan spoke slowly as he picked up the wine glass on the table. With a mischievous smile, he placed the wine glass next to little Oda's mouth. Oda Ono's face was red. She opened her small mouth and drank the wine that Yi Fan handed to her. Beauty is so obedient, Yi Fan said with a mischievous smile. Seeing this, Akatsuki was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. Okay, I'll knock, Akatsuki said as she walked out of the cabin and closed the cabin door. After reaching the cabin door, Akatsuki wiped her tears with her sleeve and kicked the cabin door in front of her. Yi Fan's disgusting face just now made her so angry that she had nowhere to vent her anger. Bang! With a loud bang, the entire cabin door was kicked away by Yu Hongji's kick. Crash! The severely distorted cabin door rolled to the side. Akatsuki strode in. Sorry, I knocked on the door, but I broke it, Akatsuki said coldly to Yi Fan. Miss Uehara, you'd better be polite. Don't ruin my mood. Yi Fan narrowed his eyes with the same smile on his face. Why? Did I ruin your mood? Akatsuki lifted her chin and stared at the two of them with a sharp gaze. What do you think? Yi Fan asked with a mischievous smile as he rubbed Oda Ono's bare shoulder. Oda Ono turned her head away, and her face was red all the way to her neck. What if I ruin your mood? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan provocatively. Then the guest can only follow the host's wishes. Yi Fan smiled at Akatsuki and said, Since Miss Uehara can't tell who's better, we can only turn a blind eye to Miss Uehara. What do you say, beauty? As Yi Fan spoke, he leaned over and kissed Oda Ono's shoulder. Yi Fan! Akatsuki shouted angrily. Akatsuki's shout made Oda Ono, who was lying in Yi Fan's arms, immediately stand up. She put on the clothes on her shoulders, then bowed to Akatsuki and Yi Fan, and ran downstairs with a red face. Now she understood why Yi Fan had asked her to cooperate with him. What's there to be shy about? Yi Fan looked at Oda Ono running downstairs and smiled as he said to himself, Weren't you enjoying yourself last night? Oda Ono running downstairs was exactly what Yi Fan wanted. Otherwise, if he continued to act, Oda Ono might be able to take it, but he couldn't. He had never been trained in this area. Yi Fan, what do you want? Akatsuki questioned Yi Fan loudly. What do I want? Yi Fan sneered and replied, I'm having sex in my own cabin. Whose business is it? Miss, you destroyed my cabin door indiscriminately and ruined my plans. Now you're asking me what I want. What do you want? All right, since that's the case, then let me ask you, why did you give me the Phoenix Wing Blade and the cloud riding technique? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan loudly. In the past, I promised you that I would teach you the cloud riding technique. That's why I asked Oda to give it to you. Yi Fan picked up the wine jug and filled the wine cup as he said slowly, As for the Phoenix Wing Blade, that's my compensation to you. After all, your Red Princess blade was cut off by the Netherworld ghost because of me. You're lying. Akatsuki said loudly, flying away on the cloud riding technique, phoenix wings soaring. You want to sever all ties with me and have nothing to do with me, right? You want me to fly far away and leave you for good, don't you? As Yu Hongji spoke, her voice began to choke up. She couldn't control the tears that flowed down her cheeks. Yi Fan was silent. He picked up the wine cup and drank quietly. Flying away on the cloud riding technique, phoenix wings soaring. The intelligent Akatsuki had already guessed his intentions from these two items. Answer me, Akatsuki asked Yi Fan while choking with sobs. She didn't want to hide it in her heart anymore. She wanted Yi Fan to answer her personally. Yes. Yi Fan put down the wine cup and calmly said. Akatsuki nodded repeatedly, her tears falling like rain. She had guessed correctly. Yi Fan had already made up his mind to sever all ties with her and no longer entangled with her. Okay, Yu Hongji, whose face was full of tears, said in a choked voice, since you said so, then I'll ask you one more time. Answer me honestly, and after that, you and I will have nothing to do with each other. Ask away. Yi Fan looked down and calmly said, Do you like me? Akatsuki stared at Yi Fan and asked the question that had been in her heart for a long time. Yi Fan's body shook and he suddenly looked up at Akatsuki. He didn't expect Akatsuki to ask him this question so directly. Do you like me or not? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan word by word. Chapter 8:24. After listening to Yi Fan's answer, Akatsuki painfully closed her eyes. Large drops of sparkling tears rolled down from her eyes. She finally got the answer to the question that she had been suppressing in her heart from Yi Fan. It seems that I was thinking too much. Akatsuki slowly opened her eyes and said in a choked voice, Thank you for answering me so honestly. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. As Akatsuki spoke, she slowly turned around and walked out of the door with a dispirited expression. At this time, her eyes were dull and her face was full of tears. She was like a walking corpse. With his eyes closed, Yi Fan gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He was trying to control himself and not be soft-hearted. However, it was easy to say that but difficult to do so. At this time, Yi Fan felt as if his heart was being pierced by thousands of steel needles. The pain was unspeakable. Bear with it, I must bear with it. Yi Fan kept telling himself in his heart. Plop, just as Yi Fan was heartbroken, the sound of something heavy falling into the sea came from outside the cabin door. This sound made Yi Fan open his eyes instantly. Akatsuki had jumped into the sea. Hongji! Yi Fan shouted involuntarily. Whoosh! At this time, he had no time to think. He directly used his body movement skill and instantly turned into a bright white light and rushed out of the cabin. Outside the cabin, Akatsuki's figure was no longer there. On the sea, a huge ripple was slowly spreading out. Hongji! Yi Fan shouted Akatsuki's name loudly and directly plunged into the sea. Under the sea, Akatsuki, dressed in red, had her eyes closed. Her expression was serene as she continued to sink into the sea. At this time, her veil had been washed away by the sea, revealing her beautiful face. Her heart was already dead. Instead of living in pain in this world, it was better to leave this heartless world. She had no parents since she was young and had never felt the love of a father or mother. Now that she had met the person she loved the most, it was as though the falling flowers were in love with the heartless flowing water. Perhaps this was his fate. Akatsuki thought to himself as he continued to sink. What he feared the most was water, but now he was going to die in this torrential sea. If this wasn't fate, then what was? Yi Fan, in my next life, I will either spend the rest of my life with you, or I will never meet you again. Akatsuki's mouth began to bubble, and her consciousness began to blur. At this moment, Yi Fan, who was inside the sphere of light, whizzed down from above the sea. Shwa! Yi Fan pushed the water-repelling light sphere to its limits and instantly appeared beside Akatsuki. He pulled the unconscious Akatsuki into his arms, and then activated the waterproof light ball and rushed upwards. Phew! The water-repelling light ball soared upwards. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yi-Fan, who was carrying Akatsuki, rushed out of the sea and flew towards the deck of the boat. At this time, Oda Ono, who was dressed in white, also rushed to the deck. The sound of someone falling into the water had caused her to instinctively rush out of the cabin to check. When Oda Ono saw Yi-Fan carrying the soaked and unconscious Yu Hongji out of the sea and landing from the sky, her face was filled with shock. Akatsuki had jumped into the sea. Oda Ono was shocked. When Akatsuki's true appearance came into view, Oda Ono was truly shocked. This woman was too beautiful, so beautiful that it was suffocating, so beautiful that it was unbelievable. Even though she was a woman, she was deeply shocked by Akatsuki's beautiful face. How could there be such a beautiful person in this world? Oda Ono couldn't believe it. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and prepare a set of clean clothes, and then heat up a pot of strong liquor. Yi-Fan, who had descended from the sky, rushed into the cabin with Akatsuki in his arms as he spoke to the stunned Oda Ono. Yes, yes. Oda Ono hurriedly replied and quickly followed him into the cabin. After entering the cabin, Yi-Fan placed the unconscious and soaked Akatsuki directly on the floor. Then, he activated his spiritual energy with one hand and pressed it against Akatsuki's chest. Buzz! Yi-Fan's palm glowed red. He was using his spiritual energy to force out the seawater that had entered Akatsuki's body. Ugh! Under the pressure of his spiritual energy, Akatsuki suddenly sat up and vomited a large mouthful of seawater. Yi-Fan reached out to support Akatsuki and gently patted her back. Ugh! Ugh! Akatsuki kept vomiting seawater. Why are you doing this? Yi-Fan said with a frown as he patted Akatsuki's back. Cough, cough, you. Why did you save me? Akatsuki coughed violently. Let me die, cough, cough. Your body, hair, and skin are all given to you by your parents. You're ruining yourself like this, aren't you letting your parents down? Yi-Fan said coldly to Akatsuki. Parents? Cough, cough. Akatsuki smiled dejectedly. I haven't even seen what they look like, cough, cough. Why should I let them down? Yi-Fan frowned and didn't say anything. You shouldn't have saved me, Akatsuki said with a straight gaze. I have no relationship with you anymore. Why did you save me? In any case, we were once partners. I can't just leave you in the lurch, Yi-Fan said calmly. Don't waste your energy, Akatsuki said as she shook her head. You can save me this time, but you can't save me next time. She had already made up her mind to die. Phew! As soon as Akatsuki finished speaking, Yi-Fan grabbed Akatsuki's collar and pulled her in front of him. Akatsuki, whose hair was still dripping with water, looked at Yi-Fan with a dispirited face. Her eyes were lifeless. Even ants drag out their lives. With your cultivation and outstanding swordsmanship, you actually gave up on yourself and jumped into the sea to commit suicide because of some *T love affair. Yi-Fan said to Akatsuki fiercely. If I had known earlier, your parents would have killed you when you were still in your infancy to save you the trouble. He was trying to provoke Akatsuki. You're right. Akatsuki stared into Yi-Fan's eyes and said loudly with red eyes, They shouldn't have let me live. They should have killed me. Instead of living in pain and heartlessness in this world, it's better to die. She was already hysterical. Slap. As soon as Akatsuki finished speaking, Yi-Fan slapped her. Yi-Fan's slap caused Akatsuki to fall to the ground. She turned her head and saw stars. Since he was trying to provoke her, he might as well go all the way. Akatsuki slowly turned her head and looked up at Yi-Fan with a stubborn expression. A streak of red blood slowly flowed down from the corner of her mouth. Heartlessness? Humph! Yi-Fan, who was holding Akatsuki's collar, sneered. You don't even king love yourself. What right do you have for others to love you? You! Akatsuki angrily roared at Yi Fan. Seeing that Akatsuki was angry, Yi Fan was relieved. As long as Akatsuki was angry, there would be a chance for things to turn around. You want to die? Sure, but you have to pay off your debt first. Yi Fan then said to Akatsuki fiercely, your parents abandoned you. What about your master, Kyoichi Kamitani? How are you going to pay him back for bringing you up? You're so happy. Once you die, everything will be over. Have you ever thought about other people's feelings? Akatsuki lowered her head and kept silent. Also, if you want to die, please die far away. Don't die here. I hate dead people, Yi Fan said and pushed Akatsuki away and let go of her collar. Akatsuki collapsed to the ground and started crying. Seeing that Akatsuki was crying, Yi Fan sighed in relief. Yu Hongji's thoughts of committing suicide were dispelled. Otherwise, she wouldn't have remained silent and wept bitterly. Looking at Akatsuki's pitiful appearance, Yi Fan felt like his heart was being cut by a knife. He wanted to hold Akatsuki in his arms and comfort her. But he knew that he couldn't do that. Mr. Yi. Kono Oda appeared at the door. She was holding a tray in her hands. On the tray there was a set of clean clothes and a pot of hot liquor. When she appeared, Yi Fan was scolding Akatsuki loudly. She didn't dare to interrupt or leave. She stood at the door, not knowing what to do. Yi Fan turned to look at Kono Oda and frowned. The clothes and liquor you asked for. Kono Oda lowered her head and whispered to Yi Fan. Help Miss Oda change her clothes and let her drink some strong liquor to drive away the cold. Yi Fan calmly said to Kono Oda, in the future, don't let anyone come in to look for me without my permission, especially women. As Yi Fan said this, he turned to look at Akatsuki, who was sitting there paralyzed. Obviously, these words were for her to hear. Yes, yes. Kono Oda answered and slowly walked into the cabin. She put the tray on the ground and reached out to help Akatsuki. I can walk by myself. Akatsuki pushed Kono Oda away and said calmly. Kono Oda pursed her lips and looked at Yi Fan. Don't worry about her, Yi Fan said to Kono Oda, let her walk by herself. Akatsuki gritted her teeth and stood up from the ground. Kacha! She tore off a corner of her clothes and covered her face again. I will remember what you said today. Akatsuki said to Yi Fan in a cold voice. That would be for the best, Yi Fan said coldly to Akatsuki. You can get out now. Don't ruin my and Oda's mood. Akatsuki, who was soaked to the skin, took a deep breath and staggered out of the cabin. Remember to fix my cabin door, Miss Oda. Yi Fan's voice came from behind her. Let's go, Oda, let's continue. Yi Fan said as he put his arm around Kono Oda's shoulder and walked towards the cabin on the second floor with a smile on his face. In the process of going up the stairs, Yi Fan frequently looked back at Akatsuki's back. At this time, his eyes were red and full of tenderness. Akatsuki walked step by step to the deck of the ship, then she clenched her teeth and fiercely stimulated her spiritual energy. Boom! Chapter 825. Half an hour later, Yi Fan's figure appeared above the clouds. He stepped on the auspicious clouds, his robe fluttering as he flew towards the northeast. After experiencing the painful decision in his heart, he wanted to relax and divert his attention from Akatsuki. When a person was at their most sad, the first thing they would think of was their family. His current destination was his father's residence, the Yi family's ancestral home. Ever since his father, Yi Kong, had been seriously injured, he had not personally gone to see him. Taking advantage of this time, he wanted to see his father, who he had been worried about, and see how his injuries were. At this time, it was close to noon. The white clouds were floating in the sky, and a cool breeze was blowing. Yi Fan didn't feel comfortable at all even though the scenery was so relaxing and soothing. The reason was very simple. In the past, no matter where he went, Akatsuki would always be by his side, never leaving him. When Yi Fan was unhappy, she would comfort him with soft words to ease his heart. When Yi Fan was annoyed, she would cook a few dishes for Yi Fan, and prepare a pot of good wine. She would drink and chat with Yi Fan, talking about everything under the sun. But now, those days were gone forever. He had insulted her, slapped her face, told her to get lost, and even made out with other women in front of her. To be honest, Yi Fan did not dare to believe what he had done to Akatsuki. It was as if he had just had a dream that caused him to feel heart-wrenching pain. But he knew better than anyone that this was not a dream. Everything was real. Akatsuki's heart had been completely broken by him. This woman had completely given up on him. Looking at the empty seat beside him, Yi Fan remembered the heartless words he had said to Akatsuki, and his heart began to tear. Now he understood that he had truly fallen in love with Akatsuki. Although he didn't want to admit it, his heart wouldn't lie to him. If he didn't like Akatsuki, then his heart wouldn't be in so much pain right now. Regardless, Yi Fan did not regret what he had done. As for Akatsuki, he had to do that, and he could only do that. He and Akatsuki absolutely could not have any feelings for each other. No matter how painful it was, he had to cut off the threads of love. When Yi Fan thought of this, he blinked his reddened eyes and increased the speed of the auspicious clouds under his feet, traveling as fast as lightning. Yi Fan arrived at the Yi clan's ancestral residence in less than half an incense's time, Eagle's Distress Peak. He had planned to visit the demonic blade Yi Ming at the Hawksarrow Peak before returning to his ancestral home. However, there was no trace of Yi Ming's aura on the Incho Peak. It seemed that Yi Ming was not around and had gone out for some business. As Yi Fan thought to himself, he urged the auspicious clouds under his feet to descend slowly toward the Yi clan's ancestral home. At this moment, the Yi clan's ancestral home was very quiet, and there was no movement at all. In the spacious courtyard, there was not a single person to be seen except for piles of various ores. However, none of this could escape Yi Fan's five senses. He had already heard the sound of iron forging coming from the ground of the ancestral home. He didn't even need to guess that his grandfather Yi Yun and father Yi Kong were forging weapons in the secret underground chamber. Whoosh! As Yi Fan thought to himself, he dispersed the auspicious clouds under his feet and landed directly in the courtyard of the ancestral home. He stopped and looked around for the secret chamber's mechanism. He had been to the ancestral home more than 10 times since he was young, but he was completely unfamiliar with the mechanism here. Smack! Just as Yi Fan was looking around, a big warm hand patted Yi Fan's left shoulder. With that slap, Yi Fan's expression changed greatly and his pupils contracted. Who exactly was this expert behind him? He was actually able to escape from his exceptionally sharp five senses, stand behind him without anyone noticing, and even pat him on the shoulder. Whoosh! The moment Yi Fan felt the pat on his shoulder, he immediately used his body movement and disappeared from the spot. Yi Fan had developed the habit of reacting quickly after all the big and small battles he had experienced. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan appeared in the open space more than 10 feet away. Buzz, at this moment, he was holding the fireproof sword in his hand, which was glaring with red light and rising heat. He was ready to launch his attack. On his glabella, a blood swastika appeared. The cultivation of the person who patted his shoulder was so high that it was completely out of Yi Fan's expectation. Instinctively, he activated the heavenly demon's power and summoned the fireproof sword. In a battle between experts, one move was usually enough to determine the winner. Yi Fan was still in shock after being patted on the shoulder by that person. This was the first time he had encountered something like this ever since he had passed the heavenly tribulation. According to his speculations, the person who appeared behind him was most likely the expert who had killed the 3 bellkeepers. However, when he saw the expert standing in front of him clearly, Yi Fan was instantly stunned. The man in front of him was none other than his biological father, the inverse scale sword Yi Kong. Duh! Father? Yi Fan exclaimed in shock. Brat, you still remember to come back to see your father. Yi Kong smiled at Yi Fan. I thought you wouldn't acknowledge you as your father after you became the ruler of the Devil Realm. Father. Yi Fan withdrew the heavenly demon's power and put away the fireproof sword. Then, he rushed up to Yi Kong and shouted loudly. The Yi Kong in front of him was surrounded by auspicious light. Auspicious air rose, and the spiritual energy in his body was even more vigorous and domineering. Yi Fan couldn't believe it. During the demon-slaying conference, Yi Kong's internal organs were still damaged, and his vitality was depleted. Now, in less than a few months, not only had his injuries healed, but his cultivation had also undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Yi Fan could tell that the spiritual energy in his father's body was not simple. The purity of his spiritual energy and the vigor of his strength made him seem like an immortal. Father, it's really you! Yi Fan exclaimed in shock as he circled Yi Kong, looking him up and down. Yi Kong's transformation was so drastic that Yi Fan felt like he was in a dream. What exactly had father experienced during this time? How could he have undergone such a transformation? Yi Fan couldn't understand it no matter how hard he tried. How is it? Your father doesn't look too bad, does he? Yi Kong said with a smile as he looked at the shocked expression on his beloved son's face. Father, what's going on? Yi Fan asked Yi Kong excitedly. Yi Kong smiled. He told Yi Fan about how loose immortal Yujizi had taught him his cultivation base and the incantation for the sword spirit of the void spirit sword technique. When Yi Fan heard this, his eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. He only knew that his father's master was a mysterious beggar. He never thought that his father's true identity was actually an immortal. What made Yi Fan feel even more incredulous was the ethereal sword art, one of the 3 ultimate immortal sword arts. Yi Kong had just told him that this sword art's sword moves were mysterious and domineering. It could kill 8 righteous gods and demons on cave islands. Yi Fan understood that his father's words were not false. The void spirit sword art was already extremely domineering when it was powered by vital qi. If it was powered by spirit qi, especially the spirit qi imparted by an immortal, the power of the void spirit sword art would be unimaginable to Yi Fan. No wonder he didn't notice his father's sudden appearance at all. The spiritual energy cultivation that Yujizi imparted to his father was indeed powerful. Father, this time, it can be considered as a blessing in disguise. Yi Kong smiled at Yi Fan. Father, to be able to meet an immortal master, you really have a profound fate. Yi Fan was sincerely happy for his father's immortal encounter. Yi Kong smiled and patted Yi Fan's shoulder. Oh right, father, where are grandfather and Uncle Yi Chen? Why don't I see them? Yi Fan asked Yi Kong. Your grandfather is forging weapons in the sword hut. Your Uncle Yi Chen is casting bronze men. They can't leave, so they didn't come out to see you. Yi Kong smiled at Yi Fan. How is it? Is everything going smoothly? Yi Fan asked. Everything else is fine. It's just that smelting these meteorites takes too much effort. Yi Kong said to Yi Fan. We have to forge so many bronze men and weapons at once. No one else can interfere. If the forging materials can't keep up, the progress will naturally be slower. Yi Fan frowned after hearing this. Yi Kong was right. The Yi clan would rather go without than have substandard weapons. They always strived for the best. A top-grade weapon could easily take months or even more than a year to forge. One weapon was already like this, let alone hundreds of divine weapons. If they wanted to speed up the progress, they had to forge many swords and sabers at the same time. And the prerequisite to achieving this goal was to ensure that the forging materials were smelted in advance. But this was easy to say, but it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The material used to forge the Bronze Men army was not ordinary steel or bronze. It was meteorites that fell from the sky. Yi Fan knew how difficult it was to melt meteorites that fell from the sky. If meteorites could be easily melted, they would not fall to the ground. They would have melted in mid-air. Speaking of which, if it could be easily melted, then there would be no need to use meteorites to forge top-grade swords and sabers. How many bronze men and weapons have been forged? Yi Fan frowned and asked Yi Kong. 30 bronze men, 20 sabers, 800 arrows, and 50 sets of armor. Yi Kong answered. How many people helped in the forging? Yi Fan asked again. Those who are good at forging swords and sabers in the clan have all been mobilized. There are more than 100 people. Yi Kong said. Too slow, too slow. Yi Fan said solemnly. As long as the smelting speed of the meteorites can keep up, it can at least increase the speed by 3 times. Unfortunately, it's too difficult. Yi Kong frowned. Both father and son fell into silence. Father, how about this? I will hand the Everfire sword to you. After a long time, Yi Fan looked up and said to Yi Kong, Your spiritual energy is now deep and pure. You can use the heat from this divine weapon to melt the meteorite. In this way, all the problems can be solved. Buzz, as Yi Fan spoke, he took out the Everfire sword, which was known as the King of Fire. Chapter 8:26. This Li Fire sword is your divine weapon. What will you do if you hand it over to me? Yi Kong looked at the Li Fire divine weapon that Yi Fan handed over and asked with a frown. Using the immense heat of the Li Fire sword to smelt the meteorite falling from the sky was simply a fantastic idea. With the power of the Li Fire sword and his newly obtained immortal spiritual power, smelting the meteorite in an instant was as easy as flipping his hand. However, this way, Yi Fan would have one less divine weapon to help him during this period of time. This son of his was the reincarnation of Eldritch, and had many enemies. Without the Li Fire sword, Yi Kong was somewhat worried. Don't worry, Dad. Yi Fan stuffed the Li Fire sword into Yi Kong's hands and smiled. Your son has already passed the first heavenly tribulation and is now the Demon King. I am no longer the child of the past. No one dares to offend me. Furthermore, Yi Fan said as he moved his head closer to Yi Kong's ear and laughed softly. Your son has more than one divine weapon in his hands. Other than the Li Fire sword, I have 3 more divine weapons that are enough for me to use. Other than the Li Fire sword, Yi Fan also had the Frost Dragon sword, the Demon King's divine weapon, the Waning Moon Blade, and the divine weapon, the Waning Moon Blade, personally forged by Eldritch. These 3 divine weapons were all peerless divine weapons, and their power was not below the Li Fire sword. Hearing Yi Fan's words, Yi Kong was instantly shocked. He only knew that his son had the Frost Dragon and Li Fire divine weapons. He never expected that this kid actually had 2 more divine weapons besides these 2 divine weapons. Yi Fan smiled and roughly told Yi Kong about his experience of obtaining the Waning Moon Blade and Blood Drinker Blade. After hearing this, Yi Kong could not help but feel a lot of emotions. This son of his was indeed not the same as before. The noble identity of the Devil Monarch, the astonishing and bizarre background, the heaven-defying supreme cultivation base, and the tyrannical peerless divine weapon. Almost all the strange experiences were concentrated on his beloved son. Stinky brat, you are young but you have quite a few divine weapons. Yi Kong smiled at Yi Fan. That's why, Dad, you can use the flaming sword to help Grandpa and Uncle Yi Chun smelt the meteoric iron. You don't have to worry about me, Yi Fan said with a smile. Very well, in that case, I will use this Li Fire sword for the time being. Yi Kong nodded and said, When the Bronze Men army is finished forging, I will return it to its owner. Yi Fan nodded. It's almost noon. You haven't eaten anything yet, right? Let's go. Father will get you something to eat, Yi Kong said as he prepared to lead Yi Fan inside. It had been a long time since the father and son had a drink together. Today, Yi Fan had returned to the ancestral home to see him. This made Yi Kong very happy. "Dad, let's not eat first. I have to go." Yi Fan pursed his lips and said to Yi Kong, "Go? Now?" Yi Kong frowned after hearing this. Yi Fan nodded. "So urgent?" Yi Kong asked. "Can't you stay for a few nights before leaving? Your grandpa and Uncle Yi Chen miss you very much. They said that the Mid-Autumn Festival is in 3 days and it's also your birthday. They are all wondering when you will come back." "I know, Dad," Yi Fan said to Yi Kong with a reluctant expression. "I want to stay too, but I still have a lot of things to do. I can't spend the Mid-Autumn Festival with Grandpa and you." Sigh. "It's been hard on you regarding Chico." Yi Kong sighed and patted Yi Fan's shoulder. "Go. Take care of yourself. Don't worry about the family. Remember, whether you are the Devil King or Eldritch, you will always be Yi Kong's good son." Yi Kong said and shook Yi Fan's shoulder hard. Yi Fan's eyes reddened and he nodded heavily. "Dad, take care of yourself and Grandpa. I'm leaving," Yi Fan said as he choked and knelt on the ground. He respectfully kowtowed 3 times to Yi Kong. "You brat, why are you kowtowing all of a sudden? Get up, get up!" Yi Kong's eyes also turned red. He choked with sobs as he reached out to help Yi Fan up. "Stinky brat, you're now the Demon King." Yi Kong laughed with red-rimmed eyes. "If you can reforge your grandfather's flesh and blood, can't you restore your head of silver hair? Look at you, you look older than your dad." Yi Kong's heart ached as he looked at his beloved son with a head of silver hair. "I'm used to it, Dad." Yi Fan wiped his tears with his sleeve and said with a smile, "Don't I look good now? I look like a deity." "Brat, how old are you already? You still act like a child." Yi Kong smiled and punched Yi Fan. "Dad, I should go. If I go back late, Matsumoto Takeyoshi will be suspicious." Yi Fan sniffed and said with a smile. Yi Kong pursed his lips and nodded. Yi Fan turned and walked away. Whoosh! After taking 3 steps, Yi Fan instantly turned into a ray of resplendent starlight and soared into the sky, streaking across the horizon. After 10 minutes, Yi Fan's star arrived directly above the East Sea. At this time, the East Sea was calm and the surface of the sea was sparkling. Whoosh! Yi Fan's figure flashed and disappeared into thin air, then reappeared on the deck of the boat in an instant. He opened the cabin door and stepped into the cabin. "Mr. Yi, you're back." Inside the cabin, Oda Ono was cutting fruit. When she saw Yi Fan appear, she immediately put down what she was doing and greeted Yi Fan. Yi Fan responded and slowly walked up the stairs. As soon as he returned to the East Sea, Yi Fan's mind couldn't help but think of Akatsuki. "By the way, Mr. Yi, Miss you came by just now," Oda Ono said to Yi Fan. Oda Ono's words made Yi Fan, who had already stepped on the stairs, immediately stop in his tracks. "Didn't I tell you? Without my permission, no one is allowed to come in, especially women," Yi Fan said and turned to look at Oda Ono with a frown. "She didn't come in. She just came to deliver something," Oda Ono hurriedly said. "After delivering the thing, she left." "Deliver something?" Yi Fan frowned and asked, "What thing?" "It's a package." "I didn't open it," Oda Ono replied. "I've already put it on your table." Yi Fan turned around and continued upstairs to the cabin on the 2nd floor. On the table in the cabin, a green package was quietly placed there. Yi Fan sat down on the futon in front of the table and reached out to open the green package. He didn't know what else Akatsuki would give him. When he saw what was inside the package, Yi Fan's heart suddenly felt like it was being torn apart, as if thousands of arrows had pierced through his heart. Inside the package, there was a white jade robe of exquisite workmanship and quality neatly folded. On top of the white jade robe, there was a snow-white veil and a glowing red crystal mask. These things were specially given to Akatsuki when he first went on a mission with Akatsuki. Now, Akatsuki was returning these things to him. On the side of the package, there was a small bamboo figurine lying there quietly. Yifan slowly stretched out his hand and picked up the bamboo figurine. The bamboo figurine was more than 7 inches tall, and its entire body was made of thin bamboo sticks of different lengths and thicknesses. A set of exquisite black embroidered robes fitted the bamboo figurine perfectly. On top of the bamboo figurine's head, there were countless thin silver threads that were tightly sewn together, forming the bamboo figurine's long silver hair. The bamboo figurine's face was made of white silk cloth, and on the silk cloth, there were exquisite and handsome facial features. This bamboo figurine was smiling, and it was smiling extremely brightly. The bamboo figurine was tall and slender, and its black robes were tied around its body, and its silver hair was hanging down. Black robes, silver hair, and a handsome face. If it wasn't Yifan, who else could it be? At this moment, a faint sweet smell floated into Yifan's nose. It was the smell of sugar-coated haws. Yifan's heart shook and then tears came out of his eyes. Akatsuki had used the sugar-coated haws and bamboo sticks that Yifan had bought for her to make this bamboo figurine. She had kept those sugar-coated haws and bamboo sticks. Creak! Yifan held the bamboo figurine tightly in his hands and lowered his head, as if he was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Strands of silver hair hung down like a waterfall, blocking Yifan's crying face. Yifan cried out loud. Akatsuki had completely cut off all ties with him. Back then, he had done everything he could to give her the cold shoulder, humiliate her, and even slap her face, all to make her completely give up on him. Now, he had gotten what he wanted, but his heart was in so much pain, and his heart was broken. Yifan grabbed his hair tightly with both hands, and he kept tearing it with all his might. His whole body trembled, and he was in so much pain. He didn't deserve Akatsuki's true love. Mr. Kono Oda appeared at the door. She was holding a plate of fruit in her hands, and her face was full of confusion. She had originally come to deliver fruit to Yifan, but she had witnessed the scene of Yifan crying bitterly. At this moment, she didn't know what to do. She wanted to comfort Yifan, but she couldn't say anything. Get out! Yifan suddenly raised his head, looked at Kono Oda, and shouted loudly. At this time, his silver hair was messy, his eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was very scary. Slap. The scene in front of her scared Kono Oda so much that she dropped the plate of fruit in her hands. The pieces of fruit scattered everywhere, and the porcelain shards flew everywhere. Yes, Kono Oda's face was pale as she hurriedly bent down to pick up the pieces of broken porcelain and fruit on the ground. I told you to get out. Whoosh. Yifan roared as he waved his sleeves at Oda no. Whoosh. A strong wind appeared out of nowhere, and it went straight for Kono Oda. The strength of the wind was so strong that it caused the entire cabin to be filled with a whistling sound. Kono Oda, who was picking up the things with her head lowered, didn't understand what was going on, and her body was directly blown away by the strong wind. Kono Oda instantly flew out of the cabin and landed heavily at the bottom of the stairs. Whoosh. Yifan waved his hand again. Clang. The cabin door slammed shut. There was blood at the corner of Kono Oda's mouth as she slowly got up from the ground. She pulled a chair and sat down, wiping the blood at the corner of her mouth with her sleeve as she panted heavily. What was in the package that Akatsuki gave me that made Yifan so angry? Kono Oda thought to herself. Chapter 8:27. In the blink of an eye, it was already evening. Walla. The door to Yifan's cabin opened. Yifan, with his silver hair and red eyes, walked out of the cabin on the second floor with a dispirited look on his face. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and flew down the stairs, arriving at the door of a cabin. This was the cabin where Oda Kono was staying. At this time, Oda Kono was sleeping in the cabin. Although Yi Fan's touch didn't take her life, it had damaged her internal organs. Under such heavy injuries, the body instinctively shut off all other senses and entered a state of recuperation. This caused Oda Kono to be in a coma since noon, and she hadn't woken up until now. Knock knock knock. Standing outside the door, Yi Fan raised his hand and gently knocked on the cabin door. There was no response from inside. Oda Kono was now in a semi-conscious state. How could she possibly hear the knocking? Yi Fan frowned at first, then immediately activated his devil spirit and stepped forward. Whoosh, Yi Fan, enveloped in a red light, instantly passed through the cabin door and entered. Oda Kono was lying on the bed in white pajamas. Her face was pale, and her breathing was heavy. Yi Fan slowly walked to the bed and reached out to touch Oda Kono's forehead. Yi Fan frowned as soon as he touched her forehead. This woman was running a high fever, and her internal organs had been severely damaged. Yi Fan retracted his hand, feeling a little regretful. A few hours ago, he lost control of his emotions and was in a bad mood, causing his demonic thoughts to burn brightly. As the saying goes, when the city gate is on fire, the fish in the moat will be implicated. Oda Kono appeared in the cabin just as his demonic thoughts were burning brightly. Thus, she was blasted out of the cabin by his spiritual energy and was severely injured. Everything was his fault. This woman was innocent. Yi Fan thought to himself as he slowly extended his hand and gently hovered above Oda Kono's forehead. Buzz. He activated his devil spirit and began to heal Oda Kono's injuries. Dozens of dazzling rays of red light shot out from his palm and into Oda Noda's glabella. As soon as the spiritual energy entered Oda Noda's body, it began to rapidly circulate through her 5 viscera, rapidly healing the severely damaged organs. After the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Kono Oda slowly opened her eyes. In her hazy vision, Yi Fan's silhouette gradually became clearer. When she saw Yi Fan sitting next to her, Oda Ono's face was filled with shock. "Mr. Yi!" she exclaimed as she instinctively sat up. "Don't move, lie down properly." Yi Fan reached out and helped Oda Noda to sit up before placing her back on the bed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Yi, I overslept," Oda Ono hurriedly said to Yi Fan. "I'll go prepare dinner for you," she said as she prepared to get out of bed. "Lie down properly and don't move." Yi Fan held her down and said calmly, "I'm healing your injuries. It'll be done soon," Yi Fan said as he once again activated his spiritual energy to heal Oda Noda's injuries. The red light shot out again and entered Oda Noda's glabella. Oda Noda's eyes widened as she nodded obediently and stopped moving. She never thought that Yi Fan would heal her personally. "Did I scare you just now?" Yi Fan asked Oda Noda as he released his devil spirit. No, Oda Noda replied softly as she lay on the bed. "It was my fault just now for accidentally injuring you. I apologize," Yi Fan said to Oda Noda. It's okay," Oda Noda stammered. "Sir, you're too serious. In the future, when I lose control of my emotions, remember not to come near me. It'll be dangerous." Yi Fan stared into Oda Noda's clear eyes and said calmly, "If you encounter such a situation in the future, immediately hide or return to the warship. Do you hear me?" Yi Fan was a little afraid of his violent outburst just now. He didn't think that his sadness would trigger the devil spirit to enter his mind. He didn't even need to guess. This must have something to do with his transformation into the Devil King. After the devil spirit was released to its fullest extent, everything seemed to have gone out of control. The demonic spirit, who had tasted the taste of freedom, took advantage of the opportunity and entered when his emotions were fluctuating. That was why the previous scene happened. "I understand," Oda Noda replied, half understanding. Yi Fan nodded and didn't say anything else. He focused on healing Oda Noda. Looking at Yi Fan, who was wholeheartedly focused on healing her injuries, Oda's face turned red. No other man had ever been so good to her. Never. She was just an ordinary ninja. It was only because of her outstanding appearance and curvaceous figure that she was brought on board the Buji. A female ninja like her would never be liked by any man. The reason was simple. Most beautiful and charming ninjas like her would be sent out to perform seduction missions to obtain confidential information. Which man would like a woman who relied on her body to obtain information? However, Yi Fan was an exception. He didn't discriminate against her. Although this man's cultivation was heaven-defying, he was vicious and merciless, and he looked as cold as ice. As long as one knew more about him, they would discover that this man wasn't as cold as he looked. The matter of Yi Fan's wife was no longer a secret to these ninjas. Oda Nuda had seen plenty of men. No matter if it was a powerful man or a wealthy man, they were all the same in front of beautiful women. It was the first time she had seen a man like Yi Fan who was so infatuated with her and could remain calm in her embrace. Before this, she would never have believed that such a man existed in the world. Until Yi Fan appeared. That's enough. Yi Fan's voice broke Oda Nuda's train of thought. Your injuries have already healed. In addition, I've also opened up your conception and governing meridians. I won't go back on my word. Yi Fan said as he retracted the red light into his body. Oda Nuda's internal organs weren't just healed. Yi Fan had already strengthened all of her internal organs and opened up her conception and governing meridians. Once her conception and governing meridians were opened up, her meridians would be able to circulate and her cultivation would soar. From now on, Oda Nuda would be able to stand out from the rest of the ninjas. After Yi Fan finished speaking, Oda Nuda finally realized that her injuries were completely healed. Not only that, but the true energy in her body was also circulating 10 times faster than before. As long as she willed it, her true energy would move according to her will. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Oda Ono got off the bed and bowed deeply to Yi Fan with her bare feet as she thanked him respectfully. Didn't I say that you don't have to be so polite to me? Yi Fan smiled at Oda Nuda. Oda Nuda smiled knowingly. Get some rest. I'll head out first. Yi Fan turned around and prepared to leave. Sir. Oda Nuda called out to Yi Fan. Yi Fan turned around and looked at Oda Nuda. Sir, please go upstairs and rest. I'll go prepare some food and wine for you. It'll be ready soon. Oda Nuda smiled. Today's victory over the Hell's Ghouls is a huge victory. Matsumoto Takeyoshi will definitely throw a big banquet and drink to celebrate. There's no need for you to be busy. Yi Fan smiled at Oda Nuda. Oda Nuda suddenly understood. She had completely forgotten about this matter. Yi Fan smiled and turned around to open the cabin door. He walked out and returned to his cabin upstairs. There were 2 things on the table in the cabin: the bamboo figurine and Akatsuki's broken sword. Yi Fan held the bamboo figurine in his hand and looked at it. Then, he put it away. He picked up the 2 pieces of the broken red princess saber and held one in each hand. At the same time, he activated the fire snake dragon ball in his body. Buzz, as Yi Fan's hands emitted heat, the 2 pieces of the saber began to melt and become smooth. He wanted to turn the 2 pieces of the red princess saber into 2 short daggers. This way, he could make the best use of it and also split it into 2. Moreover, the quality of the sabers would not be affected at all. In the blink of an eye, the 2 pieces of the saber melted into the shape of the tip. The 2 short sabers had already taken shape. Yi Fan retracted his heat and activated the ice core to quench the 2 short sabers. Buzz, cold energy instantly gushed out from Yi Fan's hands. Clang! The 2 short sabers were instantly quenched and let out a crisp sound. Yi Fan nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the 2 daggers in his hands that had just taken shape. As long as he polished the tip of the saber and changed the hilt and scabbard, they would be 2 high-quality daggers. Whoosh! Just as Yi Fan was about to change the Red Princess saber's scabbard into 2 short scabbards, the sound of someone using a movement technique could be heard from outside the cabin. It was Ishii. Yi Fan was able to discern who this person was from his movement technique. "Sir, Mr. Matsumoto invites you to a banquet." Ishii's voice came from outside the cabin. Everything was as Yi Fan had predicted. Matsumoto Takeyoshi was holding a banquet to celebrate the defeat of the Nether Spirit. "I understand," Yi Fan replied. "Yes," Ishii said as he turned around and used his movement technique. He stepped on the chains and flew toward the battleship. After splitting the Red Princess saber's scabbard into 2 short scabbards, Yi Fan got up and left the cabin. He used his movement technique to get onto the battleship. The sun was already setting in the west, and the stars were shining brightly. Above Yikong, an almost perfect Mingyu hung high. It would be the Mid-Autumn Festival in 3 days. It would be his birthday. Time really flew by. Yi Fan sighed as he walked toward the main hall of the battleship. "Greetings, Mr. Yi." When Yi Fan walked to the entrance of the main hall, the 2 guards at the door immediately bowed respectfully to Yi Fan. Before this, they had only bowed their heads to Yi Fan. Without Yi Fan, the 2 of them and everyone on Wuji might have been completely devoured by the Nether Spirit. To a certain extent, Yi Fan was their savior. Of course, they had to be extremely respectful to their savior. "No need to be so polite," Yi Fan said to the 2 guards. Yi Fan was a little surprised by the change in their etiquette, but he understood. Whoosh! The 2 guards respectfully opened the main hall's cabin door. Chapter 828. At this time, the hull of the warship was brightly lit, as bright as day. More than a dozen beautifully designed wooden tables were neatly arranged on both sides, on which were exquisite dishes, fragrant wines, and all kinds of pastries and fruits. All the experts sat in front of the tables, talking and laughing. They were also very happy with the defeat of the Hell Ghosts. In public, apart from a group of 1,000-year-old scourges, there would be no more ghosts running amok on the sea. In private, they had broadened their horizons and learned what it meant by there was always someone better than them. For an expert, what limited their cultivation was not their own techniques, but their own horizons. This time, they had personally witnessed the tyrannical techniques of several great experts and benefited a lot from it. Not only that, but they had also displayed their own techniques and cooperated closely with each other in battle, performing outstandingly. Walla. After Yi Fan entered the hull of the warship, the cabin door slowly closed behind him. After seeing Yi Fan, all the experts instantly fell silent. They looked at Yi Fan in unison and nodded at him in greeting. In the Battle of the Hell Ghosts, Yi Fan's battle strength had made the experts understand what it meant to have a heaven-defying cultivation base, what it meant to have a supreme technique, and what it meant to be unreachable. When the Nether Ghouls launched their suicidal attacks, the torrential rain of attacks that the experts were unable to withstand was broken by Yi Fan in one move. With one move, all the ghosts were destroyed. This kind of power made these experts, who were usually extremely conceited, wholeheartedly convinced. To be honest, if it were not for Yi Fan, they might have already become part of the Hell Ghosts and would not be sitting here chatting and enjoying a sumptuous banquet. Not only did the experts nod to Yi Fan, but even Onijiro, Chi Yao, Chinkong Iha, and even Yamada Shingo, who was standing behind Matsumoto Takeyoshi, took the initiative to nod to Yi Fan. In this battle, Yi Fan had won everyone's respect, from the experts to the crew. The green-eyed child, the blue-clothed man Kaori Sato, and Chiyao Yamamoto, who had been taught a lesson by Yi Fan, all had respectful expressions on their faces. They did not dare to underestimate Yi Fan. Yi Fan's heaven-defying cultivation base had completely won them over. Humans were a very strange kind of animal. When you were just a little bit stronger than him, he would hate you to the point of gnashing his teeth. He would be eager to tear you into pieces and get rid of you as soon as possible. However, when your strength far surpassed his, he would instead be extremely respectful to you and not dare to act rashly. One word, lowly. When Yi Fan saw the experts nodding their heads at him, he immediately returned their greetings. He returned the greeting as he slowly walked to his seat. Among the experts, one person. Akatsuki. Yi Fan's heart thumped. What about Akatsuki? Where did she go? Why did she not come to the banquet? Could it be that she wanted to commit suicide again? Yi Fan looked calm on the surface, but he was very anxious in his heart. He secretly used his 5 senses to search the entire warship. After a search, Yi Fan's hanging heart was relieved. Akatsuki was still in her cabin. She did not come to the banquet, presumably because she did not want to see him. Yi Fan thought in his heart. Ha ha! Buffon-kun, we were waiting for you. Seeing Yi Fan arrive, Matsumoto Takeyoshi, dressed in a loose gray robe, laughed loudly as he stood up from the main seat. He went down the stairs and directly greeted Yi Fan. Come, 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 today I will drink 1,000 cups with Buffon-kun. Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who came in front of Yi Fan, enthusiastically pulled Yi Fan's hand and walked towards Yi Fan's seat. Yi Fan's seat was to the left of Matsumoto Takeyoshi, right next to Matsumoto Takeyoshi's seat. Onijiro's seat was to the right of Matsumoto Takeyoshi, also right next to Matsumoto Takeyoshi's seat, opposite of Yi Fan's seat. The two of them could be said to have contributed greatly in the battle at Netherworld. Without Yi Fan, the Netherworld demon's powerful attacks would have been difficult to resist, and without Onijiro, the Netherworld demon's weak points would not have been discovered. If one of the two had been missing, they would not have had today's glorious battle results. Because of this, Matsumoto Takeyoshi arranged for the two of them to sit in the first seat. Chi Yao, dressed in black, and Chinkong Iha, dressed in white, sat in the second seat. Chi Yao's seat was next to Yi Fan, and Chinkong Iha's seat was next to Onijiro's. Although the two of them did not contribute as much as Yi Fan and Onijiro, their contributions were still outstanding. If they had not stalled for Onijiro and destroyed the Netherworld ghost ship, the Netherworld demons would not have been wiped out so quickly. Moreover, the two of them were powerful, their moves were overbearing, and their auras were grand. They had left a deep impression on Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Sitting in the third seat was Funakoshi Shinichi, dressed in a navy blue robe, and Bamu Chongqing, dressed in a white robe. The performance of these two in this battle could be said to be remarkable. Funakoshi Shinichi had broken through the sea with 2 Netherworld ghost ships in one hand, and Bamu Chongqing had destroyed the Netherworld ghost ship with a single slash of his blade. Although the two of them were not proficient in killing ghosts and spirits, their battle strength was admirable. Come, Buffon-kun, sit. Matsumoto Takeyoshi personally brought Yi Fan to his seat and invited Yi Fan to take a seat. Yi Fan was polite to everyone, except for Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Matsumoto Takeyoshi invited him to take a seat, and he did not refuse. He shook his robe and sat cross-legged on the praying mat. Everyone. Matsumoto Takeyoshi returned to his seat, then raised his wine cup and said to the experts, "We were able to win this battle and eliminate the Netherworld ghost because of everyone's help. This first cup of wine is a toast to everyone." "Thank you, Mr." The experts all raised their cups. Cheers. Matsumoto Takeyoshi raised his head and drank the wine in his cup. Cheers. The experts all said in unison and drank the wine in one gulp. The waiter in charge of the banquet began to pour wine for the experts. "This second cup of wine is a toast to Buffon-kun, Onimuki-kun, Ikaku-san, Chi Yao-kun, and Yamada-kun." Matsumoto Takeyoshi raised his wine jug and poured wine into his cup as he said, "In this battle, if it weren't for the 5 of you charging at the front, I don't think we would be sitting here drinking wine. This cup of wine is a toast to the 5 of you." After he finished speaking, Matsumoto Takeyoshi put down the wine jug, then picked up the other cup of wine on the table and personally handed it to Shingo Yamada, who was standing behind him. Shingo Yamada nodded at Matsumoto Takeyoshi and took the cup with both hands. "I'll drink first as a toast." Matsumoto Takeyoshi raised his cup to the five of them and drank the wine in his cup. "Thank you, Mr. Songmoto." Other than Yi-fan, the four of them raised their cups and drank the wine in one gulp. Yi-fan, who was sitting on the praying mat, raised his cup with one hand and raised it to Matsumoto Takeyoshi, then took a sip of the wine in return. Matsumoto Takeyoshi smiled, and did not mind at all. "For this third cup of wine, I would like to toast Buffon, Koen and Mr. Onamo alone." Matsumoto Takeyoshi filled the cup again, then walked down the stairs with one hand holding the cup and the wine jug in the other. If Buffon Koen had not captured hundreds of thousand-year-old spirits alive, and if Mr. Onamo had not seen through the secrets and flaws of the nether spirits' undying bodies under high pressure, I don't think we would have achieved such results and eradicated these scourges that have been harming us for thousands of years. As Matsumoto Takeyoshi spoke, he came in front of Yi-fan, bowed, and filled the empty cup in front of Yi-fan. Seeing this, Yi-fan frowned and stood up from his seat. As the saying goes, one does not hit a smiling person. Matsumoto Takeyoshi had personally left the table to pour wine for him, and to toast him alone. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to express his gratitude. Otherwise, if he sat while Matsumoto Takeyoshi stood and watched while Matsumoto Takeyoshi poured wine for him, that would be too rude. "Buffon Koen, I would like to toast you." Matsumoto Takeyoshi raised Yi-fan's cup and handed it to Yi-fan as he spoke solemnly. "Mr. Matsumoto is too polite." Yi-fan took the cup and replied, "The nether spirits have been harming us for thousands of years, and the people have suffered. Everyone has the right to kill them. Even if they did not come this time, if I saw them, I would have done the same." There was a deeper meaning to his words. It meant that he killed the nether spirits on behalf of the heavens, and not just to help Matsumoto Takeyoshi. In other words, even if he helped Matsumoto Takeyoshi, it was to protect the true soul of his beloved wife in the evil cauldron. "Buffon Koen cares about the people, Matsumoto admires you. Cheers." Matsumoto Takeyoshi said as he raised the cup to Yi-fan and drank. Yi-fan drank the wine in one gulp. "Satisfying, satisfying. Ha ha." Matsumoto Takeyoshi laughed loudly. "Buffon Koen, please sit." Yi-fan nodded and returned to his seat. Matsumoto Takeyoshi turned and walked to Onijiro. Onijiro stood up from his seat. "Oniguchi-san, we were able to destroy the nether spirits' immortal bodies in this battle because of your superior wisdom. Without your help, the nether spirits would have been endless, and everything would have been in vain. This cup of wine, Matsumoto-san." Matsumoto Takeyoshi said as he poured Onijiro a cup of wine. "Matsumoto-san, this is my duty, and it is my duty." Onijiro replied respectfully. "Master's telepathic ability is truly an eye-opener." Matsumoto Takeyoshi handed the wine cup to Onijiro and said, "Master's magic is exquisite and unparalleled. Matsumoto admires you greatly." "Thank you, Master." Onijiro took the wine cup with both hands and said respectfully, "Cheers." "Cheers." The two clinked their cups and drank the wine in one gulp. The entire banquet lasted until late at night before it began to disperse. Matsumoto Takeyoshi was in a good mood. He repeatedly clinked cups with the experts and drank until he was dead drunk. During the banquet, he ordered everyone to rest for 3 days. During these 3 days, all the experts could leave the warship and go anywhere freely. All expenses would be covered. After the banquet was over, Yi-fan, wearing a golden crown and black robe, staggered out of the hall. This time, he was really drunk. As the saying goes, wine doesn't intoxicate people, but oneself. Akatsuki's matter made him depressed, so it was natural for him to get drunk easily. In addition, during the banquet, the experts took turns toasting him and calling him brothers. He didn't refuse any of them and drank one cup after another. He could use spirit energy to dispel the wine, but he didn't do so. Instead, he urged his spirit energy to force the wine to his brain. He wanted to get drunk, completely drunk. After waving goodbye to the experts, Yi Fan, who reeked of alcohol, staggered and used his movement technique. Whoosh! Yi Fan soared into the air and flew towards the boat. But this time, he really drank too much. He soared into the air and he was quite confident. But he didn't adjust his direction well. He flew too high, causing his body to fly over the boat. Plop, you're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.